What's up, Sifters? You know it's GameFace right here on twitch.tv/SiftedGames, the last regular episode, of 2023. Welcome alongside me to do that is Matt Kyle. How you feeling about our last episode of 2023?
Oh, better than the people who bought the day after.
That's for sure. Well, I think they all got their money back. So
most of them did, but about 110,000 people didn't.
Really?
And I don't know why. Maybe some of them played too long, but I think they rescinded that, didn't they?
I think so. We're going to talk about that game.
That means they still walked away with a fair amount of money.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Welcome to GameFace. Again, this is our last normal episode for 2023. We are doing our Game of the Year episode on Friday, right here at the same...
Which will not be normal.
Which will not be
It's going to be real fucking weird.
Now we're demonetized. You said the F word in the first 5 minutes.
Nah.
We'll see. But anyway, our Game of the Year awards are on Friday, same time at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. But this is our last regular episode of GameFace where we do all the stuff we normally do. Friday will literally just be our Game of the Year awards. Those usually take around like an hour and a half, something like that. So it won't be the normal length. And then that'll be it for... Well, I guess Matt and I for 2023. Pac will still be coming through. Actually, I'll still be doing Ask Shane Anything until the rest of the year. So you get a couple more episodes from me of that before the year's over. And then Patrick will roll pretty much through the whole holiday season. Speaking of which, right now, we're asking for questions for Pactor Factor. Now, here's the thing. We're only asking for a few. We need to record some episodes tomorrow to kind of get us through the holidays. Now, if you guys ask a question that's great and we don't use it for this round, we will use it for the next round when we shoot in the first couple weeks of January. So don't not ask a question for fear that it won't make the cut, because we'll just slide that over into the batch of questions when we shoot the first full round of 2024. Season 9, by the way, of Pactor Factor coming, which is just mind-blowing. Episode 370 of GameFace is mind-blowing, Matt. I think it is.
Look at us boosting Godzilla's box office over
What's
there.
happening? Oh, the hype train. Here we go.
Everybody went to see Godzilla because they said they watch Godzilla.
Oh, everyone's saying is thanking you. Yeah. Rock and Roll 458, thank you for recommending Godzilla Minus Zero. It was great seeing it in the theater. That's awesome. That's what we're here for. That's literally our job. It's to make sure people are consuming the best pop culture content possible.
I believe they've extended the theatrical run to the 21st.
So it's doing well.
More time. Oh, it's the highest grossing Japanese film in U.S. history.
Is it?
And for the first 2 Japanese movies were the #1 back-to-back weekends.
Wow.
It was the Godzilla and then
never happened.
And then Boy and the Heron. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, people will go see subtitles if you give them something worth watching. That's part of the lesson here.
That's true.
The other lesson is make good Godzilla movies and people will go see them.
Yeah. Well, this is GameFace. This is the flagship
make good
show.
Anything.
Yeah, it's true. This is the flagship show of Sifted Games at sifted.net. We are supported 100% by people who pledge at our Patreon at patreon.com/sifted. If you like the show and you want to see it continue, that's how you can support it and make sure that that continues to happen. One thing I should say, too, before we get going, and I'll call these people out at the end of the show, but the last couple episodes, we've been putting up a QR code for you guys to just buy us a beer for the holidays, just to thank us, basically, if you want to. And that is the response to that has been amazing. At the end of the show, I'm going to go through the list of people who have bought us a beer, and it is awesome. Thank you. I cannot believe it. And that is also with the problem that page has, our donation page. You have to be logged in to use it. We're trying to get that fixed right now. It's not such a big deal to register for Sifted if you want to buy us a beer or whatever, but I do understand some people may not want to do that. So we are trying to get the restriction on that page lifted so that you don't have to be a member of Sifted to donate. I got a couple DMs from people asking about that. So anyway, thank you guys to everybody who has bought us a beer for the holidays. It makes a huge difference. And anyway, that QR code will be up on the screen a little later. Feel free to donate $1, $5, whatever you want. We appreciate every dollar. It makes a big difference for us. And we're going to call those people out at the end of the show as well. Matt, how has your week been?
It's all right.
Yeah?
Playing some Avatar.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that today.
Playing some Rogue Trader.
We won't be talking about that today. No. Probably in our first show of 2024, we'll slide that one in there.
It's a big one.
Well, usually our first show of the new year, it's a pickup show. where it's like stuff that we didn't quite get to the year before we cover it, and then we start doing the second episode. That's when we start doing like the 2024 previews, where we go through each platform and talk about the big games coming out for it. Nintendo's is going to be interesting this year for sure, because there's kind of like that May to June thing where it just all ends.
Right.
Meaning
like the Fantasy League's going to be difficult to draft.
Yeah.
You don't really know a lot.
Well, you're going to be splitting hairs this time. I mean, let's be honest. Like, it was easy this past year, kinda. It was easy to know you had a good team. I think next year it will be tough to make sure. And I think having all 10 games next year will also be tough. Also,
will Silk Song come out?
Never did come out.
Stay tuned.
It's freaking insane.
Didn't even get mentioned.
I know. It's nuts. So anyway, also today, so we'll be doing Game Awards. We'll do our housekeeping. Then we'll do the Game Awards. And there's no show on Earth that covers stuff like the Game Awards or E3 or Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show the way GameFace covers that stuff. We show you every game that matters. You see the games. And we're going to do that right here for the Game Awards today. Then we're going to talk about Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. And then we're going to wrap up the year, the Fantasy Leagues, both Matt and I's Fantasy League, and then the Fantasy Challenge that you guys all participated in. We'll be crowning the winners of both of those at the end of the show today. We have a lot to get to today. I'd also really like to try to get Name That Game in, because we haven't done it for a few weeks because the shows have just been loaded with normal content. But I've actually got a ton of message from people like that miss Name That Game. I've been pleasantly surprised that people have been upset that it's not been in the show. I kind of thought people had lost interest in it over time, but apparently not. We got some people who are pissed off that it hasn't been in the show for a while. So we want to try to get that in too. So we have a lot to get into this last 3-hour block that we have here on GameFace. We're going to do our best to get to all of it. I'm not making any promises. Again, if we get to the end of the show and we're out of time, Name That Game will probably be cut, unfortunately. That's just kind of the way it goes. I'm going to do my best to get there. Matt, you can help me too. Both of us can help by trying to stay succinct if we can, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. There's like 20 premieres from the Game Awards alone that we're going to discuss today.
People are asking what time the Game of the Year show would start.
I did say that already. The Game of the Year show is just like this. It'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And again, it'll be around 90 minutes. It's not like a usual episode of GameFace. And we'll probably do an extended Q&A at the end of GOTY, because it's our last time to connect with you guys before the year's over. And so if you guys have questions or anything you guys want to discuss with us before we move on, we'll be sure to do that. So again, if you're watching this show on YouTube or you listen to it on the podcast services, head to patreon.com/sifted and give us a pledge if you can. Let's check out what y'all are up to. And thank everybody who subscribed with Twitch Prime and all that good stuff as well. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Hopefully I haven't lost a bunch already, because you guys have already been like donating a bunch of stuff. We're on what level of the hype train are we on right now? Like 3 already? That's awesome. Dre Losh. I don't know how to say that, Matt. Do you?
No.
Dre Lox.
Dre Lock Z. Dre Locks.
Yeah. Happy holidays to you too, brother. I hope you have a great holiday season. When is the first episode of 2024? I don't know yet. We'll have to figure that out. I still don't know when I'm coming back from the holidays from the East Coast, because right now flights are outrageous to come home. The flights out there aren't that bad, but coming back, like until you get into January, they're outrageous.
Well, they know you got to get home.
Once you're there, yep, they got you. So anyway, I don't know. A lot of it's going to depend on how I can find a reasonable flight to get back. But as I always say, follow Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. That's where all the information is, so you'll know what's going on there first. The J-Bone29. Matt, do you do any film podcasts? I love hearing your takes from the film, TV industry.
No, I do not.
That is something that I have offered Matt to do if he would like. This gear here, he is free to use it whenever he wants. If he wants to get together a little podcast for movies or whatever, he can run it on Sifted or wherever the hell he wants. He can do whatever he wants. So
yeah, I ain't touching that shit between shows. You know?
I hear you. MHG Immortan Joe, thank you for Twitch Prime. Rock and Roll 458. I meant to say -1. Sorry, I got to get the title right. Oh, what is he talking
Godzilla.
about? Oh, okay, gotcha. Mike Q says, Matt, I caught the last IMAX showing for Godzilla 1. I do not regret it. Thank you very much. Lots of people giving you props, man, for turning them on to the movie. Retro says, ask Pac about the death of E3. We're about to talk about the death of E3, but not for very long.
They did ask the director of Godzilla about the $15 million budget, and all he said was, I wish it was that much. So yeah, even less than that.
Hey, Dark Force 256, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. You've done that for 62 months. You're on a 42-month streak. That is flipping awesome, man. Thank you. Also watched Godzilla on your recommendation and was very happy with it.
Godzilla's also on the short list for best visual effects for the Oscars.
Wow.
For that much money, and they're up against,
that's incredible,
$200-300 million budget movies. Like, learn something, Hollywood.
That's awesome.
Like, you don't need to spend that much money on this stuff.
Yep. Surly Mexican, thank you for Twitch Prime. Commander Fett, thank you for Twitch Prime.
Although the Japanese VFX industry is worse than ours in terms of treatment of employees.
Yeah. Caleb Faruqi, thank you for Twitch Prime. Hope you're doing good, Caleb. Dark Jedi 24, Alashim, I think I'm saying that right. Thank you. Out of Baldy's Way, that's pretty funny. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Mr. Slim 9351, thank you. Drew Meeks 85, thank you. And I think that's all we've got. What else?
There's some new ones at the bottom.
Okay. Also, Eric Cartmenez, obviously you see the Steelers had a horrible loss again. This bet that we have is literally going to come down to the last game. The Steelers need to win 2 out of their last 4 games for me to win. And I think it's literally going to come down to the last game. So unfortunately, Eric, we'll have to settle up when we both come back for the holidays, because Steelers season will go until then. But anyway, it is a nail biter. It is coming down right to the last game. It's kind of awesome, actually. Let's see what else we got here. Shane, we must grab a beer together this year. I agree with you. I will probably be in so Mike's Q, for those of you who don't know, he's also from Central PA. He lives in Central Pennsylvania. He lives in Lancaster. I live in a town called Carlisle. It's about a 30 or 40 minute drive away. However, the only Apple store in Central Pennsylvania is in Lancaster. It's bizarre. So I have to drive 45 minutes to get to the nearest Apple store, and I go there every year Christmas shopping because somebody on my list wants something from Apple. So, Mike's Q, let's try to set it up that when I go to the Apple store in Lancaster, we meet and we do lunch. I will be in touch. You're right. It's way overdue. We should have done it a long time ago. Jilt31, thank you for Twitch Prime. Andy T. Monahan, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. 44 months, a 40-month streak. Awesome. And he says it's unfortunate the time cutting, especially in the Baldur's Gate speech. Okay, he's talking about the Game Awards. We'll get to the Game Awards. Retro Current Gamer, will the Lions make the Super Bowl? No. They will not.
Even I know the answer to that.
They're actually good this year. It's but they're still fading.
They're still the Lions.
They were right. They were great when the season started, but they're like the Steelers. The Steelers started out really well, and now they're just fading and dying, and the Lions are doing the same exact thing. So the NFL is just garbage if you haven't figured it out yet. All the teams pretty much suck. It's just the truth. That's why the Steelers can win 7 games and they suck, because everybody else sucks. Contano, in the wee hours of the morning, Sony Interactive Entertainment is investigating a cyber... Yeah, so did you see today that Insomniac was hacked? And there's screenshots of Wolverine out there? Did you look at them?
No.
I couldn't
find them.
I would have looked at them, but I couldn't find them.
But we might find out the other Marvel characters. I'm like, okay, I'm into it. Sure.
Well, there are
this shit, because then I'm double in.
There are other Marvel characters in the screenshots. Yeah. So that is one thing I do know, but I haven't seen him yet. I bet y'all did.
I'm more excited about that than the leak about who the DLC characters are for Suicide Squad. I'll tell you that much.
Nolan Bozo Zone says nothing on 4chan. What in the hell are you doing on 4chan? I don't care.
I mean, 4chan's still a pretty good place to find illicit shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever visited 4chan in my entire life. Because I know it has stuff like that. I also know it has god-awful stuff there, too.
Just don't go into B.
Is that where you don't go?
That's where all the shit posting nonsense is.
I've never been there.
Looked at it before. Sometimes just to find, usually for leaks or weird things going on, or sometimes before Twitter news. Those were news happened quickly.
Yep.
But I don't, much like Reddit. I hate the formatting on that site. I'm just I can't read this. I don't. That was my earliest, I'm too old for this on the internet thing. It was just 4chan's formatting made no fucking sense.
It's a Metro City's, old school BBS, basically, isn't it?
Sort of, but more messy and with weirder, code things you could do to change all the colors.
Yeah,
and, it was
markup, they call
obnoxious.
It. Yeah. I stay away from sites like that, generally. So anyway, there you go. That's our intro for our last episode of GameFace for 2023. It's time to kick off the show proper and get to our housekeeping. And we have a good bit of it today, but not as much as the last couple episodes, and that's a good thing because we have a lot of content in the core of the show that we need to get to. First up today, people were already talking about it in the chat. I saw the news this morning. It made me sad. I know Matt does not give a crap, but
I thought it was already happened.
No, they were still trying. So today, the ESA finally announced that E3 is dead for good. They were still trying to make it work, even for next year. Or possibly the year after that, but I think they've just figured out that there's just no appetite for it, and so the ESA
figured that out last year.
Yeah. So not only has the ESA canceled E3 for the next however many years, it also said that it has no interest in trying to revive it. So this is it. It's done. There is no E3 ever again. Which
I mean, there hasn't been one for 4 years.
Yeah.
Going to be
5. We're still
five.
here. Yeah. I'm really bummed. I have a lot of nostalgia for the show. And we do have taps here. And I think if there's one thing that we should play taps for, it's E3.
Kind of feels like we're playing it a year after we buried it, but...
Yeah, we'll dig up the corpse for one last time.
I mean, the ESA almost did themselves, so...
Yeah. It really is sad to me.
Somewhere Jeff Keighley is celebrating.
Oh, he's...
Summer Games Fest has an opening.
I mean, it's a huge opening.
He's on the phone to the LA Convention Center right fucking now.
Here's the thing, Matt. It's not just an opening for him. It's an opening for anybody who has an interest in doing something like this and has the pockets to do it.
Yeah, but why would you? Like, I mean, ESA did this because it was basically, I mean, originally it was an actual industry expo. It was a business thing.
Right.
But eventually it became ESA realized they could fund themselves as a lobby group for the year if they just charged everybody obscene amounts of money for the booth space.
Yeah.
And that worked for a long, long time because it served a very useful function. I don't think it serves a very useful function anymore. And I don't really know if there's a need for a public-facing convention-style thing at that time in the year. That's kind of the problem, is like most people, especially the critical masses of people who make these various big gathering things a success, they've kind of got their yearly schedules together at this point, and E3 is not one of them.
Yeah.
They're going to Comic-Con or Dragon Con or Gen Con or whatever you have. TGS sometimes, if you really ever like Gamescom, if you want to travel. And you should, if you're interested in Gamescom, you should go to Gamescom just to see Cologne and all the surrounding area. Like,
that's a great place to just
great
go
place
visit.
to be, game convention or no. I just don't know. And again, I mean, that it would be bad for me because local is good for me. It's easy to get to. But if I was going to start this again, I sure as hell wouldn't do it in LA. It's too expensive.
It's really rare in life to see something that was ever as big as E3 was to disappear. Like, that shit just doesn't happen. Like, if you can get that many people to some place to spend a ton of money, somebody figures out a way to keep it going, to keep making the money. Like, it's just... not just in gaming.
Yeah.
This stuff just doesn't happen.
Ask theater owners about that.
Yeah. It's very rare for something that was once as big as this to just go away.
Somewhat. I mean, I think you see shrinkage in certain things of like baseball game attendance since we were younger and things like that.
Yep.
I think, but the thing is that doesn't often happen, on a higher level is, E3 is a victim of technology change. The march of progress, basically.
It ate itself almost.
Like, it was like you didn't need this anymore. Like,
Yeah.
there was a time when if you wanted to get your message out about any of your big products, everybody had to come together in the same space and get covered by all the same outlets and the mainstream outlets. And it was the only way you could get real exposure and everyone's eyes on you at the same time. And that's just not the case anymore with the internet and social media. And look, I remember we talked about a version of that when we started to see everybody taking cameras around all the time. We used to be,
you and us, and
we had
like 5 crews.
We
on
had
the floor.
a crew. Vic Lucas had a crew. Game Trailers had a crew.
Yeah,
and that was pretty much
IGN
it.
had its booth.
And one year,
GT usually had a booth.
2006, 2007, 8 in there somewhere. Maybe the year or two after Santa Monica. I remember talking to you and some of the game trailers. It was almost like everybody's got a fucking
everybody's got a monopod. Yeah,
and there's a point at which like footage of the floor is no longer going to be
no value,
interesting or valuable because everyone has it, and it's like, and that sure as hell became true, and more and more, and like that is really what has happened here writ large. Like,
I mean, the irony is that this is a show to celebrate technology, and technology killed the show to celebrate technology.
It absolutely did.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Let's not be too. It didn't celebrate technology; it sold technology.
Yeah.
Like that was. This is a commercial venue, and it's much like the game adverts, and it outlived its purpose. That's all.
But it's just weird that there's other shows that are still going to happen, and they're the same damn thing.
But they're not, because they weren't. This was never public facing.
Yeah,
and they never. There is.
I think that was the problem. The perception was that people can't get in.
Yeah,
and even though when they opened the doors, I think a lot of people just assumed I can't get in because it was that way for many years.
I think the main problem was that like the people who went while they enjoyed it. Like, I don't know how many people came back because it's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just expensive to get in, but it's expensive to stay in Los Angeles for a week downtown.
If something ever comes back to replace E3, they should do it in Vegas.
Yeah, or anywhere else, really, with a big enough convention center for it.
And
really.
plenty of hotels and like, plenty of public transit to get them people around.
That was the big problem was, like, you know, like they never... There is a timeline, I think, where the ESA maybe hired the right people or hired whatever, Reed Pop
and
earlier and
yeah.
figured out how to make this a public-facing convention as opposed to a business-centric expo faster. And it worked. I mean, maybe the pandemic was going to doom it no matter what. But
yeah.
They were 2 years into the public thing, and it just wasn't good.
It wasn't happening.
Compare it to any other public-facing convention.
I mean, unless you're Nintendo. As you can see by this line.
Oh, yeah,
Nintendo will tell you that we're crazy because...
Nintendo's bulletproof, sure.
It is, yeah.
But part of that is because their booths were so small and so overly managed that you just had to sit around for hours to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened at BlizzCon, too. No one's going to claim that BlizzCon's, like... That little area was a great thing that was worth doing. It was just poorly designed.
Yeah.
And the difference is that when you got into the Breath of the Wild section, you didn't care how long you'd waited because it looked so cool.
Yeah. And you got some free tchotchke from
stuff.
Nintendo.
Oh yeah. I got.
That you could then sell on eBay and get half of your cost for the day back.
Oh yeah. I still have that coin.
It's funny.
But it's like, yeah, it just sort of it was a zombie for a while. I mean, I guess not really, because like it was. Basically, it tried to rise a couple times after 2019, and that was the end of it.
Too much dirt on the grave.
But as someone, I went for 21 of them, and that was.
I went to pretty much all of them. I think maybe I missed the first one.
You missed the first one. I think you saw you
My
went to
first
all
one was
but one,
Atlanta.
and I went to all but two.
Yeah,
the first two. And because I was sure as hell wasn't going to Atlanta.
Well, Atlanta was miserable.
Yeah.
It was literally like 107 degrees and like 95% humidity in Atlanta. By the time you got to the show, you felt like you had already worked the whole day. And I was walking like 2 blocks in the heat. It was not a good choice.
And I'm glad I went to the first one was 99 because that was in the middle.
I was there too.
That was literally we like basically got out of line for buying our tickets for episode 1. And drove to L.A. That was it. Like, because when we were young and we could do stupid things like that.
You still can, but you just won't.
I'm gonna fall asleep halfway. It's not. We were in line for 13 hours.
Yeah,
we were different.
Yeah,
built different back then. But like, and we walk in and there's a full size pod race. I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen a whole convention center dedicated to things I was interested in all at once.
Yeah, celebrating.
That was the fun thing.
Yeah.
That's maybe the difference between how we see it is like I would never see that as celebrating. It's selling.
No,
it's all marketing.
To me,
it's
it
selling.
was like a celebration of the stuff I love. Because I had never been someplace where everybody was like me. And everybody liked games as much as I did. I was always like, especially as you got older, because you got to remember, Matt, like games being cool for adults to play in like the late 90s, that was still like dicey. Like I still stood out. Like, when people at Temple were like, you're going to do games journalism? Like, what the F is that? You're seriously going to get out of the sports writing track to work on a gaming web? People thought I was nuts. Maybe I was nuts, but maybe I was an outlier.
Not at the time.
Yeah, at the time.
You couldn't see the future 25 years down the road.
I saw it coming. That's why I did it. But anyway.
But like, I never really had that problem. I found my people pretty.
You lived in
regularly.
California.
Yeah, it was more open.
Big difference. Yeah.
Half the people on. My dorm room, my dorm floor, freshman year was me, and the whole floor was the soccer team and the football team, and everybody played Street Fighter, or Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Like downtime, it was that and Madden and FIFA.
When I played games with my college.
Yeah. But like, I never had
NHL '94,
and they loved that I knew all the fatality. Like they're like, oh, he's a nerd. He knows all the shit. Have him come over and teach us. So like, I never had a. Maybe because I'm also not like super weird.
Like, that might be it.
But like I was the nerd they didn't mind having around because I didn't like ruin everything. But like I don't know. Like I never had. I worked at places that were comic shop, arcade shop. So I was surrounded by those people in general. My friend group. Was
but even back then, like in Philadelphia. In the whole city, there were like 5 game stores. Like, that's it.
I mean, in the Bay Area, there were about 5 game stores worth going to.
Yeah,
there were like
I'm saying there were
more.
5 total in Philly at that time. Like that's just the way it was. So
I remember at one point there was a digital stuff, a EB, a GameStop, a Babbage's,
software,
and a software,
et
etc. in the same mall. Like like how is the?
It's gone like it went from like this, and now it's going right back down.
You just go down to Valco and go to like 5 different game stores, and if they didn't have what you wanted, it clearly wasn't out yet.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the final death of E3. And the last time you will ever have to watch our B-roll from E3 2019, which was the last time Sony ever attended E3. And that was really the beginning of the end. So anyway.
When was it? 2019? When was the last time anybody attended E3?
Well, yeah, I guess
Sony was out before
2021. No, 2019. That B-roll I think had PlayStation in it and had PlayStation VR 1. I believe so. Yeah, I think that was the last year. Or maybe it was 2018.
Had to be 2018.
Maybe.
Because that was Spider-Man.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That was 2018. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, I'm really sad. But it's been coming. Like it would be harder if I hadn't seen it coming, and then it just happened out of the blue.
Yeah, you had 4 years to sort of prepare.
I grieved the death of E3 for quite a while. I still think it sucks that it's gone, but
I grieved the death of E3 in 2014.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing any of y'all can do about it, and so it is just dust in the wind. Next up. So the Game Awards happened this week. We're obviously going to talk about those very shortly. But a lot of times you get these little extra splinter stories that come off of the Game Awards because there's so many industry luminaries in town that all the publications line up to do interviews with them outside of the confines of the Game Awards. And such a thing just happened with Nintendo and the team at Zelda. IGN did an all-encompassing interview with Enuma and a couple other folks from Nintendo. And in my opinion, what came out of it was not very encouraging. And basically, what Nintendo said to IGN was that it does not understand why people want the old school version of Zelda that's more linear. And basically just said that that's never happening.
I didn't read that way at all.
Really?
No. Because they just say the grass is greener line, but they basically were saying that in the sense of like people want what they don't have.
Well, no, he said that he can't understand why someone would want less freedom. That doesn't make any sense to him. And that means, like, I'm not making a game like... To me, that's how I read it. That's exactly what he said, though.
That's... Maybe I read a different translation or something. I didn't read that line.
Yeah, that was straight out of IGN's, lifted straight out of their story.
Their comments on, like, wanting, like, another an Ocarina remake or something, or he was basically saying, like, the grass seems greener when it's not what we're doing at the time and it's not what you have. So I think, and he's like, basically was like, if we went and did that, people would complain that there wasn't any open world at the time, because, like, that's...
His exact quote was, why would anybody want to go back and play the old games? And have less
I read
freedom.
that article and I don't remember that line.
It's there. I mean, it's like 8 different outlets quoted that exact quote in their stories. In fact, that was the headline.
I think this is just Nintendo being Nintendo. Like they're just they don't talk about it. I mean, they even asked about moving this format forward, and they said we think this is probably about what it stands as what it is.
Well, no, they said they don't want to do another sequel because they said making a sequel to a sequel is stupid, and so they don't want to make a sequel to a sequel story wise. That's all they were saying. So it won't be...
But remember, they never make a separate standalone Zelda that's the same thing again.
Well, they never make sequels. Like, usually they don't do direct sequels like they do with this one, but they made so much money off Breath of the Wild, there's, like, no way that they can
Majora's
turn their back.
is a sequel. There's terrible handheld games for sequels to Wind Waker. Even what's it?
Were they plot-wise? Well, here's the other thing.
Link Between Worlds is a sequel to Link to the Past.
Well, here's the thing. The other thing, too, that Nintendo said in these round of interviews, not just with IGN, but in the IGN one, basically it said, like, we don't give a crap about the timeline. Like, that's something y'all are worried about. Like, we just want to make good Zelda games.
I mean, that's always been clear.
So I think back to one of the last big projects that we did at Game Trailers was a retrospective on Zelda called Timeline. And it was Mike Damiani was the one who led the charge. It was one of the biggest things we ever did. We had like full-on CG, like motion graphics in it. Like it turned out amazing. However, I was the one who had to copy edit literally like 30 pages of script for that. And like I got to like the 18th page and I just went to Mike and I'm like, dude, does anybody believe this crap? Like, are you just making this up? Like, because I just got lost. I'm like, I can't even follow this anymore. Like, so it ended up being different. Like, we ended up putting a lot of bullet points and stuff in there to, like, help people keep track of the stuff. I was just like, dude, I don't know. This feels like something fans care about and, like, nobody else does.
Aonuma kept his own timeline for years and years, secret from Miyamoto, because Miyamoto hates continuity. And the timeline, the split timeline in that big Zelda book, where they covered everything.
Yeah, that's what Damiani uses as guideposts.
Yeah,
basically.
that is mostly from Aonuma. Like that is mostly from how he broke it all down and like extrapolated from there. And beyond that time that Aonuma talked about that and is sort of like basically fans piecing together which subsequent game maybe goes in which timeline. And then it all comes back together in something else, and maybe Wind Waker. I don't remember because it doesn't matter. But like, the triple split timeline thing is like as official as you get in the sense that like Aonuma unofficially thought of it that way while he was making games, but just never told Miyamoto about it. But like the real answer is it doesn't matter. Like Zelda is basically a framework, and there's no story there. It doesn't matter where Breath of the Wild takes. It doesn't matter what happens in Ocarina versus what happens in Wind Waker.
To the hardcore fans, it does though,
because they have nothing better to do.
I don't care at all. But I really care.
But again,
couldn't care less.
I'm not even talking about that with the hardcore fans, because no, it doesn't. Because they
don't care. You don't think?
They care about not something that doesn't exist. Like, I'm saying, if you just look at the text of the games, at no point in any game does it matter that you know or aware of anything that happens in any other game.
They're all self-contained.
It's all outside
Even
nonsense.
Tears of the Kingdom, you didn't really need to know that much about Breath of the Wild.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about it enough that you kind of pieced together, okay, something happened 100 years ago, whatever.
Yep.
But like none of it is relevant to anything. So it's just like nerds who like to put things in boxes. That's all.
The compromise is sitting there, Matt. They can make an open world Zelda, and you just go to a dungeon. It's not that hard. They can find a happy medium for everybody.
I mean, I'm hoping that is the obvious next step.
I hope.
To do an open world Zelda that actually feels like a Zelda game.
The weird part is it seems like they don't understand what people say when they say they want a real Zelda dungeon. Like, they don't, for some reason, they can't get it. It's like, what do you mean you don't understand? You made Zelda games like this for 20 effing years. Like, how do you not get it?
I don't understand why. The war over, what this is versus what Zelda is, or what Breath of the Wild. I mean, all I can say is that one of the gaming moments that stands out for me this year is when I came in Tears of the Kingdom. I came to one of the it was like a treasure chest or something I wanted on top of a really tall stone column, and I spent all this time trying to like figure out where to jump from to glide to it, or where like the puzzle to get the thing to raise up or lower down was it. And eventually I couldn't figure it out, so I looked it up online, and it turns out the solution is just to glue 6 fucking wood panels together and lean it up against the column like a fucking ramp. And I'm like, I was so mad. Like,
that's how I solved everything.
I irrationally angry. I'm just like, there's no way. I mean, if that's how you want to solve it, and that's like a kind of like you can use the building thing to sort of short circuit the puzzle design. That's okay. But it turns out that's the only way to get that fucking thing.
That's the only way to get.
Fuck you. Fuck you. That's not Zelda. That's not what I want from Zelda in any fucking way, shape, or form. I was furious for like a day about that.
AJ the Legend Watson asks, is it the timeline ultimately have to matter considering they're making a Zelda movie? No,
because the Zelda movie is going to be unrelated to anything.
Any of it. Yeah.
It's just going to be Zelda or the Zelda. It's just going to be like Link has to rescue Zelda from Ganon. Like,
Pretty
that's
much.
it.
That's going to be the premise. Yeah. I would not try to hold the film to canon.
Yeah. Go place the Mario movie in the timeline. No, it doesn't, because it's its own fucking continuity. Like they're not going to do that.
Yep. So anyway,
even Uncharted didn't do that.
Yeah. So if basically the best thing we can hope for now is for them to keep the open world design and then just put the dungeons in there. It's not hard. It's really not that hard. Just build your damn dungeon and just plunk it down in the open world. That's all you got to do. It's not hard.
Estamont says, if the guy who has made the game for 20 years doesn't get it, don't you think that maybe it is you that doesn't get it? My response to that would be like, George Lucas made Star Wars for 20-some years, and all y'all fucking whine for decades about the fucking prequels. So no, that argument doesn't really hold water to me. I don't care how long you've been doing something.
A lot of creators lose
up.
their way over time. It happens all the time. Like, that's not out of the ordinary for that to happen, for when someone works on something for 30 freaking years, for them to kind of lose sight of the product that they've been working on.
I mean, I can understand why you kind of lose. I mean, not lose sight of it, but start to think that it doesn't matter as much when, like, the
sales.
The sale. I mean, clearly people like it,
right? Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's removing dungeons has clearly not tanked Zelda as a franchise. Right. So, like, why would they worry about it?
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Yeah, but in terms of like why, my question is like, why, if you're going to say, okay, why wouldn't you want that freedom? I'm going to say, well, why wouldn't you want to put that discovery and thrill and design and puzzleness of those dungeons in a game that has that freedom?
Yeah.
Like, why not put both of those things together? Why not put that peanut butter in that chocolate?
Yeah, you can do it. So anyway, if you're like me and you kind of miss those older Zelda games, you're kind of in a holding pattern wondering what they're going to do next. But the verbiage coming from Nintendo is not great. Next up, the day before. The biggest debacle. Is it the biggest debacle of this year now, Matt? It's easy to have recency bias and be like, oh, this is the worst thing that happened this year because it just happened. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who don't know, the day before is a shooter that was supposed to be, and it was marketed as, an open world survival zombie shooter.
Yeah, the marketing made it seem like
Days or Rust, one of those.
Days or Rust, but like also with like elements of the State of Decay.
Yeah,
like with that kind of persistent sort of emergent like thing.
Yep.
But which, I'll be honest, I hadn't really heard of it until it popped up in one of the things we talked about in the show like last year or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because that's when people were like, "Wait a minute, this game's fake."
Yeah.
And so a lot of people thought this game was fake because, again, they sold it as this one type of shooter. And then when people actually saw the real game for the first time, they're like, wait a minute, this isn't an open world MMO shooter. This is like an extraction shooter. And that's ultimately what it ended up being.
It's an extraction shooter that was thrown together in a couple of months,
right?
Judging by what it turned out to be.
I mean, it's actually...
They should have called it 4 days after because that's how long it took.
That's funny. I mean... I don't know. The game was better than I thought it was going to be honest, Matt. I mean,
the game technically existed, so that's a step.
And so people thought it didn't even exist. As it turns out, it did exist. It just wasn't what everybody thought it was going to be. And so the game came out, like 6 days ago now?
Like it was last week.
It's like last week. And in the matter of 4 days, a bunch of people bought it. People had, fallen hook, line, and sinker for the marketing for the game.
Most wish-listed game in Steam history.
Yep. Ton of people bought it, put down their money for it, and more than half of those people asked for a refund within like the time limit that Valve gives you. What is it? Like you can play it for 3 hours or 2 hours or something and still get your money back?
2 hours is usually
2 hours.
Yeah.
And so more than half of the people who played it for 2 hours got their money back.
If you told me this was like a PS4 Ubisoft game, I'd believe you.
I mean, I don't think it looks that bad.
It looks last gen.
Yeah.
Outside of like the standard like reflections that any Unreal 5 thing can do out of the box.
I see a lot of games that look way worse than this game.
But it doesn't look like those trailers. It doesn't look like what they sold.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so everybody asked for their money back. And then like 2 days later, the studio is like, well, that's it. We're closing down. Mm-hmm. And they wiped everything. Their YouTube channel, gone. Everything is gone. And Matt was telling me before we started doing the show today that they still got away with 100,000 sales or something.
Last I saw, 110,000 people had not refunded.
Wow.
Which works out after Steam's cut to something like $3 million. And then again, you're going to lose some of that to tag, whatever. But like they probably walked away with $2 million or so, which is actually not that much for how much time they put into this.
Yeah, because the developers, when they quit, was it yesterday or the day before? Yesterday, I think.
It was yesterday.
Yeah. They basically said, we've been working on this game for 8 years, like off and on. And they said they've been working on it hard for like 5 years. And so imagine working all that time on something for basically nothing. Because the other thing, too, is that like now your reputation is shot. So can you go get a job at another developer when you have this on your resume? Probably not. So they probably looked at it like, well, dude, we're done in the games industry anyway. We might as well take whatever money we can and go. And it seems to be that's what's happened. Like, it'll be interesting to see if those other 100,000 people go to Valve and like, look, man, like, they're not supporting. This is an ongoing game that is not getting ongoing support. It's basically a bait and switch. Can we get our money back? And Valve should probably give them their money back.
Valve is, from what I understand.
They are? Or it is?
As far as I know.
Okay. I mean, I knew that if they fell within the 2 hour thing, they definitely were.
I mean, the Steam page is gone. Like, the whole thing is white.
It's crazy.
It's like it never existed.
I've never seen anything like it before.
4 days. I mean, I kind of, the part of me they expect, but also they've had other games. They have other like dumb games, Prop Night or whatever that was.
They've had like 5 games or something. Yeah,
and they were all sort of the similar level of disappointing. But like, it's just very funny that they just sort of cut and ran with this.
I've never seen it happen before. Rigor Mortis UK asks, they only released what they did so they could have plausible deniability against scam accusations. I mean,
it does probably protect them against certain legal action.
It helps, but also, I mean, there is a game there. I mean, I was shocked. I honestly thought the game was either going to not exist or it was going to be so broken that it wasn't even really considered a game. It was just a bunch of scrambled code.
It's just boring.
It's just not a good game. But it is a game that actually functions and works. Like, I don't know. I guess, I don't know what the laws are around stuff like this. It's definitely fuzzy. Like fuzzy logic, fuzzy math around it.
There's not really anything you can do about it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Just get your money back and move on, and maybe don't believe weird trailers from like nobodies in the future. You know, like, and again, like it was impressive looking when those things came out. I never really understood what all the hype was about. Like it just looked like another zombie game.
Yeah, I mean, it looked no different than Days of Rust. Yeah. You know, people like those, but they're not like this phenomenon or anything. Like,
but it's like what
I didn't get it either.
Other than the visuals, I was like, okay, what's exciting about this exactly?
E-Demon says Valve will hold funds for several weeks before they issue any refunds. So, and Caleb says they likely only bothered to release it so they could get a little bit of their investment back. $2 million isn't much. Yeah, I mean, they probably still lost money on this project, even if they did run away with a couple $1 million.
Could not have been. I mean, the reason they probably bailed out is because not enough people bought it at launch, and they knew they weren't going to get any more sales.
And they're like, why would we keep supporting this game? It's just a money pit. Yeah, I mean, I understand why ultimately they cut bait, but maybe the way they did it, they could have handled it a little bit better. But let's be honest, they were in a pretty crappy situation of their own making. I would remind you.
Yeah, because this is the gameplay trailer that they put out. This is what it was supposed to be.
This is what everyone thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then it wasn't. So, lesson learned, I guess, for some people. It'll happen again eventually, but it's only
although maybe not in 4 days. Like this is pretty singular, even in the annals and journals of video game scams and things like that.
I don't know if I look at it as a scam, really.
I mean, you'd have to know the intent and the behind the scenes story. I mean, it certainly feels like a grift of some kind, if not a scam.
I think initially maybe they were being deceptive, but over time they realized that they weren't going to be able to deliver what they promised, and then it was too late.
Right, but they also never adjusted expectations or had any kind of communication about that.
No, you're right.
So that to me says they knew that they were deceptive.
At the very least, it was negligence, without a doubt. Yeah.
And like. This was clearly a custom built, like, playlet that they put on that had nothing to do with anything they were making as a game. Because the game as it was released is just a bunch of standard UE5 tricks and asset flips that probably could have been thrown together in less than a year. Yeah. So I mean,
there's a lot of studios that work on games for 3 years that are in worse shape than this one was.
But what I'm saying is, like, they basically, a lot of the stuff that's in this game as it was released was already working out of the box as an Unreal game. Right. I mean, it's
a lot of the work was already done.
Yeah, there's not a lot of custom happening here, which helps the pipeline on that. And I would not be surprised if they basically just threw it together in the last 8 to 9 months, hoping to get something out in time.
Yeah. Digital Reflux says, why erase every trace of what they said the game was once going to be?
Yeah, I mean, completely
That's a little weird.
Completely erasing your tracks indicates something to me as well.
But they're there. Like, just go in the Wayback Machine. Like, you're going to be able to get
Nothing's gone from the internet forever, but it's just like, that to me indicates that you're afraid of legal action. Yeah. Like, you're trying to erase your tracks.
Yep, could be. So there you go. That's the day before. Hopefully, an isolated story that we don't have to share again for a long time.
And hopefully Valve doesn't give them any of that money.
Any of it?
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. It is tough to work.
Everyone should get their money back for something that you get dropped in 4 days.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's a weird situation, and again, hopefully one we don't come across again for quite a while. Next up, we talked about Fortnite and how it's turning into the metaverse in last week's episode. Well, one of the things that's inside Fortnite is Rock Band, basically. So you may have forgotten that Epic Games bought Harmonix, the studio that makes Rock Band, and Matt and I were like, what in the hell? Why would they buy Harmonix? Like, guitar-based games are dead. Like, nobody wants those anymore. Well, now we see why they bought Harmonix, because now Rock Band is in Fortnite. And so people are now starting to ask Harmonix, like, what's going on? Like, how do you play Rock Band without guitars? And according to Harmonix, they are going to make guitars playable with this game.
Wow. So the answer to that is if you want to have some guitars for your old Rock Band setup, get them now because they're about to become real expensive.
So here's what I don't get.
The Fortnite kids are going to want them.
Do you think they're going to manufacture new guitars? Or do you think they're just going to release some kind of a dongle so that the Xbox 360 works on Xbox Series and like
I don't know.
The PS3 works on like...
Putting out actual guitars for this seems excessive unless it blows up real big.
Yeah, I mean, it seems insane, Matt. I mean, building peripherals for guitar games bankrupted a couple companies. Like,
yeah.
Some of them have never recovered from the last Rock Band and the last Guitar Hero where they just have warehouses full of this
giving
crap.
away free games on Epic Games Store and start giving people free guitars.
Right.
That's how you bankrupt things.
You kind of have to have a guitar peripheral to play these games. Like,
yeah, otherwise you're jumping. I mean, it's tough to play.
What's the fun? There's no fun in just hitting buttons on your controller along to the beat like that. So, and then there's the drums and there's the like. What is gonna? I don't understand.
Are they stealth bringing Rock Band back here? Like,
I mean, yeah, it's inside Fortnite. It's not a separate standalone like product or anything. It doesn't have its own like USP code or whatever. Like,
but that might be enough to trick people into playing Rock Band again.
I mean, I think probably...
I mean, Fortnite's audience is a generation of children that don't even know Rock Band and Guitar Hero exist.
Yeah, I know. I think what they're going to do is they're going to release dongles. I don't think they're going to go in the whole...
I think they'll start with dongles or compatibility.
They'll figure out some way to
make
make the old guitars work.
I mean, the old ones are... Most of them, the old ones are USB anyway. Like, maybe they'll only be PS3 compatible or whatever. Yeah. And I think mostly either that or dongles, and in the end... If it blows up and becomes really popular, yeah, there'll be super limited edition Fortnite guitars and branded by all these different people.
That might work.
Yeah.
Like, if you get all the people who have done their concerts inside Fortnite to license the
the guitars, and you can go in during the concert and play the song with them.
Like, or license even the microphone. That might work with the Fortnite kids, actually. Because these kids are so young, they don't even remember Rock Band.
And here's the thing. Buy the guitar includes a bunch of skins.
That is a done deal.
You can only get by buying the guitar.
Or give them a bunch of V-Bucks with the guitar. It might work, actually.
Sponsored by different musicians. You get a skin of that musician with the instrument.
This might be the only way that it works, actually.
You're welcome, Epic.
My guess is there are some people from Epic who watch this show. So
you go tell them that, Jeremy. You tell them I sent you.
Do you think this is crazy? I think Epic's the only company that could probably do it.
Right. I can't, call anything Fortnite does crazy anymore because it keeps working
right every time.
Yeah.
You're right. Criticizing the moves that Epic makes is a fool's errand because it seems to knock it out of the park almost every time, particularly with Fortnite. So anyway, if you miss the old days of Guitar Hero and Rock Band and you haven't thrown away your guitars, don't throw them away because you could end up using them, or you could end up being able to sell them on eBay or Craigslist. They might actually be worth something again. So just something to keep in mind as we go forward. It looks like those old pieces of plastic that we all thought we were going to throw away one day might actually be worth keeping at this point. We got some bad news today, but we knew about it about a week ago, Matt. Free Radical Design has been shut down by our good friends at Embracer.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, Free Radical Design, when it first launched, was an offshoot of Rare. A bunch of people who had worked on GoldenEye and Perfect Dark left to go work on their own stuff. I believe that happened when Microsoft bought Rare. Is that right?
It was a little before that.
Was it before?
Yeah. It was probably somewhat... I'm sure the rumblings of that sale were happening internally at the time, so it probably did relate to it. But I believe it was a little before that.
Yeah. Around that time, though.
Yeah, I think it was basically a perfect storm of we're clearly not going to be allowed to make the games we want to make going forward, and they decided to do their own thing.
Yep, and they released Time Splitters and then Time Splitters 2, and obviously they weren't as popular as GoldenEye, but they did find an audience. People were fans of
they do have
Time
a very good reputation to this day.
Yep. And they're shutting down because they're another studio that Embracer acquired. Embracer doesn't know what to do with them. There was a Time Splitters reboot coming, by the way. I think we were supposed to get the first look at it next year. Now that's never going to happen. The studio's already posted all their farewells. Another studio bites the dust because of Embracer's buying spree. It's really gross what is happening. But it's going to keep happening.
They made a big bet, and they lost the bet, and now thousands of people lose their jobs.
Now everybody else pays. Yeah.
Not the people who made the bet,
right.
of course.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
The employees, the people who work for your company are the ones who are paying the price for it. So, rest in peace. Another studio gone that goes way back to our history in this industry, Matt, for sure. But rest in peace, Free Radical Design. It's really a shame. But to be fair, Matt, they haven't really made anything for a really long time. Like, they were way overdue to release a product. So, look, I will say this. If I'm Embracer and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at our portfolio of studios that we have, I hate to say it, Free Radical Design would probably be one of the first ones I would cut. So in that way, probably Embracer made the right decision. It just hurts to see it happen because they shouldn't have to make that decision at all if they had operated their business properly and not just went on a spending spree trying to crack some weird deal with the Saudis.
They were never going to.
Yeah.
That was it's called Embracer for a reason.
Yeah. Anyway.
Called it Amoeba.
Yeah. So rest in peace, Free Radical Design. It really sucks. Next up, obviously, we talked about Grand Theft Auto 6 a bunch in last week's episode because we got the first trailer that you're seeing right now. Well, some of the residuals from this first trailer, there are people in Florida man, who are unhappy because, Matt, Rockstar used real viral videos and real viral people in this trailer. So the shot where it goes...
Slightly painted over.
I mean... Some of them were pretty almost identical to what was actually... And so Florida Man, who is this guy who has tattoos all over his face, is accusing Rockstar of using his likeness in this trailer, and he wants $2 million.
He's not going to get $2 million.
He's not going to get anything. No. Nobody seems to understand what parody means anymore. Like, everyone
I
just
also
thinks...
liked the guy who voiced Arthur in Red Dead Redemption 2 responded to him. It's like, you're not getting anything. Rockstar has lawyers that are stronger than the army.
He knows better than anybody, I'm sure. So this is a real viral video. This person actually hasn't raised a ruckus yet, but this was from a real viral video.
She'd have a hard time because she doesn't really look like that person.
Yeah, she actually looks a good bit different.
Most of the characters in this have been redone into different people, but they're just doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
including the guy dragging the alligator out of the pool. Yeah, and like that guy, like the
This is the guy. This is Florida Man who's trying to sue Rockstar.
Although all the tattoos he has are different.
Yeah, like he just has a tattooed face. Yeah. Like that's really the.
And this guy, and you have basically a rock solid defense here because the word on his forehead clearly marks him as a Jared Leto Joker parody as well.
Right. Yeah.
So and it's like you can't really do much about it because a lot of this stuff, especially this one, this is. One of the reasons Florida Man is a thing is because Florida has no privacy protections for people who've been taken into custody or charged with anything.
That's why so many episodes of Cops are filmed there.
Right, and it's why you see everybody's face and name every time anything weird happens in Florida. Most other states, if things like that also happen, but it's not legal to publicly release the identity or information about the case.
Right.
But in Florida, you can because... Florida's a fucking hellscape. So
journalists in Florida...
So that's why the Florida Man thing is a joke because there's just no protection for people who do crazy shit down there. And like because so much of that is legally released and made like basically he counts as a public figure because of it.
Yeah.
So there's not really anything you can do about it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that journalists in Florida know that people search for Florida Man. Yeah. And so they start their articles with Florida Man does whatever.
Yeah, now it's just a self-perpetuating cycle.
Right. It's pretty crazy. So anyway, this guy's going to get nothing, although he did seem to get about 5 minutes of fame out of this. Now some people know who he is.
Yeah,
but
that's all he gets.
You're right. That's about all he's going to get. Believe me, Rockstar had this thing locked down, stone cold lock for months before it ever debuted. Like, their lawyers combed through this thing like a million times, frame by frame, making sure there was nothing in there they could get sued for. So, Florida Man, I'm sorry. You're not going to get any money. I hope you enjoyed your 5 minutes of fame. We just gave him another 5 minutes here on GameFace. Maybe that's my mistake. Next story in housekeeping. A research firm called Ultra announced this week that just 36% of PC games are purchased at full price.
That tracks.
It definitely tracks. At least anecdotally for me, it feels like that. I mean, if you look at sales numbers, obviously people...
There was a period where the idea of paying more than $19 for a PC game was crazy to me.
I know, yeah.
Like, Steam sales broke the curve on that real hard. And they've pulled it back a little bit in the last, 10 years, I'd say, where, it's not as, the deep discounts aren't as deep anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at, like, nowadays, if something on my wish list is more than 50% off, I'm like, oh, going for that.
Yeah.
It used to be like Steam sales were like 90% off.
Yeah, I know. I hardly even go check them out anymore, honestly. I've kind of given up. Here's the thing, though, Matt. People always wonder why, okay, a game comes out for Xbox Series and PS5, it seems okay. PC version comes out. First of all, people are pissed off. Why does sometimes the PC version come out later? This is why. Because only 36% of you are buying new games on PC. Right. Everybody else waits for the prices to go down.
Well, also one of the ex-Rockstar guys posted a video where he talked about that this week, where he basically said, yeah, the PC version's lower priority for Rockstar because the console versions sell 3, 4, 5 times as much. Like, there's no reason to put that much effort up front into the PC version because you're making vastly less money from it. It's only worthwhile later when you're sort of like, you can get around to it.
Yeah, or you want to get more people into Grand Theft Auto Online, and you've kind of already hit your zenith as far as your sales.
But like even then, they know. I mean, they know that that's basically it's the PC version to Rockstar is useful because years after the game is already out and done, people are modding it and putting it back in the news cycle again on PC. That's the use of the PC version, is it kind of has this extra life that way.
Yeah.
But even my friends back when they were at Ubisoft years and years ago, back in the heyday of Assassin's Creed and stuff, were all like, yeah, the PC version, you know, rule of thumb was PC version is going to sell 30% of what the consoles do, and that's each console, not the total of not total console sales. It's each console is going to sell triple or quadruple what the PC does. The PC is an afterthought for a reason.
And you also wonder, like, why when the ports do come out, why are they half-assed? Why don't they run well? Again, this is why.
That's it. Yeah.
Because PC players are not buying games new.
Yeah, and those who do are going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And basically, they know they have time to fix these games before the majority of the PC audience even sees them.
Yeah.
And you could say that that's a snake eating its own tail, in the sense like a lot of people don't buy PC games at launch because they expect them to be broken and not working.
It's a catch-22.
So. Yeah. You never know. But, yeah, like the fact remains that while a high-powered PC is the best you can get these things to look and play, it is still a niche market compared to literally every other way of playing a game.
If you guys want to be treated better...
Except maybe Stadia.
You got to start buying games at launch. That's just the truth. You got to buy them at full price. Like, I understand why you don't, but if you're going to do that and buy stuff on a discount, don't whine and complain that either ports are broken or they show up 18 months later. Another thing that's kind of related to this is that Final Fantasy 16, which is eventually coming to PC, Square Enix announced this week that it is not going to reprogram the game to work with mechanical hard drives. You're just like on console, you're required to have an SSD on your PC to play Final Fantasy 16.
I mean, if you're seriously playing games seriously on your PC, and if you have a PC that can run Final Fantasy 16. You don't have an SSD, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Well, I think I have an SSD, but it's only like 128 gigs or whatever. I just have like my iOS installed on it.
You have a very old one, like my old one. Like I had just the one SSD in my old one, my Titan one, and it was just to hold the OS and make sure all that ran fast. But nowadays, if you've built one in the last 5 years, you've got at least one extra SSD for installing things that need faster access.
Yeah, they're still so much more expensive than mechanical drives.
They are, but like the performance it makes a difference. I can't imagine this is not really a game for someone to buy an SSD for. I can't imagine you'd already have one for stuff like Cyberpunk or
My
whatever.
point is that Square Enix is realistically looking at the sales, and it's like, yeah, we're going to cut off some of the PC market if we don't let it run on mechanical drives, but it's not worth it worrying about it because there's not enough people buying new games.
And it's not worth the work it would take
it's just
make it work.
Yeah. And you're right. Most core gamers, core PC gamers, they do have a big SSD.
Wait till they put it on the Xbox and have to fit it on the Series S.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
Although at least that has
Maybe
fast
it doesn't,
access.
though. Who knows? We'll see at that point if
I don't know.
Microsoft is still pushing that on third parties. But again, I do believe that most core PC players do have a big SSD drive. I play most of my games on console, so when I build a PC, I'm like, I just want my OS to run fast. I'll run my games off my mechanical drive. You can't really do that anymore if you want to play some of these console games. So, if you look at Insomniac, like Insomniac got Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart to work on mechanical drives. wasn't ideal, but it worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful, but like I can see why Square Enix, who's very,
uncompromising,
presentationally uncompromising, would say like, no, we're just not going to allow it to look, because I mean, all the videos that came out of Ratchet looking like that were not good.
No, they were not. They're not helping sell the game. That's
and
sure.
I'm sure when this comes out, people will find a way to force it to run on mechanical drives, and we'll see some weird shit that way.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, It is what it is. Again, you got to start buying games when they're new on PC if you want this stuff to change. Next up, we just got news this morning that the Alone in the Dark reboot has been delayed yet again to March 20th. I feel like this game is like dead on arrival, Matt. I just really do.
I mean, yeah, it's Alone in the Dark.
It's never been a big IP. And I'll be honest with you, like I played the demo of this, it was so boring. And you watch these trailers, they're so boring. There's not even anything scary about them. They're just boring. Like, this game is going to tank. This is also, I believe, Embracer, by the way. I think it's one of the games Embracer is publishing. And it greenlit it, and here it comes. It's coming here in a couple months, but I think this game is just going to tank horribly, despite the fact that by March... So January and February are actually pretty good for game releases. By March, things start drying up a little bit. Even with that, I don't see this game getting any traction. Like, the data for this on SIFTD is abysmal. Nobody cares. Nobody watches any of the trailers or reads any of the stories about it. This game, I think, is going to flop. But it could be a case where it just ends up being so good that people can't deny it. I don't know.
That would be a first for this series.
It would be, yeah. I mean, there's never been a great Alone in the Dark. The first Alone in the Dark was... I wouldn't say great, but it was groundbreaking.
Yeah, it was the first survival horror, 3D survival horror game.
But since then, it's been the cut rate survival horror franchise.
And every time they try to reboot it or reinvent it, it's just sort of like, meh. Like
it's always boring.
That one that took place in Central Park had the worst driving sequences in a non-driving game I have ever played. Ever played.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Yeah. So anyway, the game is delayed again to March 20th. I'm sure that broke all your hearts because I know that none of you care because I see the data and none of you guys are watching anything related to this game. And then the final piece of housekeeping for episode 370 is Suicide Squad, again, that we also talked about last week, and we've talked about pretty regularly recently. Rocksteady just announced this week that the game will eventually get an offline mode. So it is a cooperative third-person shooter, and initially at launch, it's going to be online only. If you don't have an internet connection, you're not going to be able to play the game at all. They didn't say how long it's going to take after the release of the game before that's out there, but they said that it'll be one of their priorities. Do you care about this stuff, Matt, having to be connected online?
No.
I don't either.
I mean, I'm going to play this game single player probably anyway.
Yeah.
I'll just be online while I do it. Like,
as long as eventually there's an offline version, so for the sake of preserving gaming history and things like that, because if a game is always all online, once it goes away, there's no playing it again.
Or maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Avatar won't install without an internet connection.
Right. Well, it has, Matt, it has DRM on even the console versions, not just PC. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch this game and see how it does in so many different ways. But I am glad that Rocksteady is concerned about it and they're worried about it. I don't really care how long it takes for them to get the offline mode ready because I don't really care if a game's online only. Other than
I mean, everything I have is online all the time anyway, unless Spectrum goes down. So
yeah, other than preserving the game for posterity's sake, it's not a big deal. So
a bunch of leaks came out about this yesterday too.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
Like what?
All the
that you want to share here.
All the DLC characters, partly this online thing, a bunch of things like that. It was nothing too super exciting.
Yeah.
The DLC lineup is a choice. I thought it was funny that people are considering that spoilers.
People
DLC.
consider everything spoilers, Matt.
Like there's no story in it. It's just who's going to be in the DLC.
Yeah.
Two of them are interesting characters, and the other two are characters you've never heard of. So, good luck.
Yeah.
Even one of them, put it this way, you know how much of a comic book guy I am.
Yeah.
I had to look one of them up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Wow. That's saying something. But anyway, it'll be really interesting to see how this game does, because I could see this getting a big marketing push with big advertising dollars, and I could see, like, casual players being like, Superman's a bad guy? Hell yeah. Like, it could end up doing pretty well.
He's already been a bad guy in the Snyder movies, basically. So
yeah.
I don't know what certain people's obsession is with Superman being a scary monster, but, like, stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. Like, everyone's like, I always see people, like, posting pictures from, like, Man of Steel and Justice League and Batman v Superman being like, oh my god, it's the best picture of Superman ever, and it's like, it's all like pitch black, he's like covered in dirt and blood, and like everything's muted, and he's like, it's Henry Cavill like doing this heat vision thing with all the veins burning around his eye. I'm like, no, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's not what fucking Superman is. What are you doing? Like,
yeah. I think some people might be excited by it, but yeah, we'll see. There's gonna be a lot of interesting things to look at around this game when it finally does come out. So there you go. It's the latest on Suicide Squad. And with that, we have wrapped up our housekeeping. Definitely a little earlier than prior episodes, which is good because we have a lot to get to. I'm keeping an eye on that clock throughout the episode all day today. So we are now ready to get on with the bulk of our last episode for 2023. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Crémasse, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. That's right, get your ass on some Crémasse. Pronto. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Like I've been saying, it is the perfect Christmas liqueur drink. You can get that steady little buzz going, be happy and merry without getting drunk and making a fool out of yourself. It's perfect for the holidays. Go to creamls.com/sifted. There you can buy online, or you can find a store locator that you can swing by and pick it up before you go to a holiday party, before people come over. And again, try to remember to use that URL. That's creamls.com/sifted when you go there. Also, there's great drink recipes. So if like you're having people over on Christmas Eve, you want to set up a bunch of drinks for everybody coming over, get a recipe from the website, mix them up, and everyone rolls in, you hand them their drink, everything gets set off right away. Again, perfect for the holiday season. Support LS Cream, made by a sifter, made by a gamer. Nobody better to support. Perfect drink for the holiday season. That's LS Cream. And with that, oh, there you go. Gotta get our brand. There we go. Much better. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. We're going to start off with the Game Awards 2023. No surprise there. Easily the biggest event for the last week. Easily probably the biggest event since Gamescom. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It does feel a little bit like the Game Awards are replacing E3, maybe.
No.
No?
I guess Summerfest might.
As far as like announcements and stuff.
There was no AAA in this to speak of. Like when we start getting like the new Zelda announced at this, call me. But until then, this is sort of, I don't know. This is Gamescom again.
Yeah.
I guess like Gamescom level, maybe sort of.
Yep.
A good Gamescom.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than Gamescom.
Sometimes.
Oh, it always is. It always has way more debuts than Gamescom. Gamescom really, well, now that may change because there's no E3. But Gamescom used to just be like, here's the same demo we had at E3 in June. Yeah. Everybody gets to play it now. But now that may change. I mean, there may be a lot more debuts at Gamescom going forward.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I think companies companies are just going to save the manpower and the money that they would normally spend making these demos for 1,400 people.
Yeah.
And just continue working on the game.
It's possible. So we're going to split this up into a few sections. We're going to talk about the show itself. Then we're going to talk about the awards. And then we're going to talk about the debuts. So let's kick things off talking about the show in general. Matt, what were your general impressions of the Game Awards 2023?
I didn't think it was as good as the last few.
No?
It didn't hang together quite right. And I can't quite put my finger on why. It was not engaging in a different way. And I've thought they've basically been kind of steadily improving a little bit every year. This felt like it wasn't an improvement. It felt like a step back. It felt a little soulless somehow. Some of that might just be that there's so many celebrities presenting things, many of whom didn't really seem like they had a reason to be there.
At least Matthew McConaughey is actually voicing a character in the game.
This was fine. And actually, Exodus is actually one of the few things I thought was really interesting in the whole thing. But in terms of the new announcements, but basically, like the fact that the presenters got to talk longer than the winners. That was part of that.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like much of a celebration of games or the people who had achieved things in games so much. I mean, it really felt like the game adverts this year instead of the game awards. I know that's like a running gag, and I've always kind of noted that this is a commercial that happens to justify its existence with awards. But it has never felt more like that than this year.
Okay. I actually thought it was pretty good. I did think it got just a little bit better. I agree with you that it's got a little bit better the last few years, and I thought this year also it just got a little bit better. The people seem to be in an uproar over how much time people got to accept their awards, that they were pushing them off the stage. But, I've worked on 12 or 13 award shows throughout my career, and that's just kind of the way it is. Now, the time did seem a little shorter.
I've never seen an award show that only gave you 30 seconds.
Yeah, that does seem a little short.
That's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the please wrap it up thing is rude.
Yeah. What happened last year is you have the first guy come on the show.
I don't care what Christopher Judge did.
He just ruined the whole rest of the rundown.
Well, he ruined it, but they still invited him back, didn't they?
Well, because it's a running gag then.
Yeah, but then don't call attention to the running gag and then overcorrect the other direction and ruin it for the people who actually were supposed to be honored. Some of those people that were up there winning at the pinnacle of their achievement in this, we may never see them on an internationally broadcast stage again that. And that's what they got, and they got cut off in the middle of trying to give some kind of tribute to their dead coworker who didn't live to see this, or they cut Larian off before they could even announce they were shadow dropping the Xbox version of Baldur's Gate 3. It's ridiculous. And meanwhile, Kojima gets to talk for 10 minutes about nothing.
Does that surprise you at all?
No, but it just sort of exposes how much of a fucking joke this is.
Yeah.
They don't take these awards seriously at all.
I think
it's never been more clear than this year. And finally, other people are fucking complaining about that. I felt like the only person in the fucking woods on this for years. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, he just listed RPG without letting anybody come up and accept the award. I'm like, yeah, he does that every year. Why did nobody cared until Baldur's Gate 3 was the RPG, I guess.
Yeah. So I kept the log of this show, and like a dumbass, I totally forgot to bring it, which sucks because I worked really hard on it. But one thing I will say is, if you look at the whole rundown of this show, there were a shit ton of awards given out in the show. A shit ton. Way more than ever before. Double what there usually are. Now, I agree, they kind of acted like they didn't want to do them, or he had his female host just quickly go through them a lot of times. Totally agree with that, but they gave away way more awards. Last year, they gave them all away on the pre-show. Literally, 60 or 70% of the awards were given away before the show even happened. But if you look at the rundown on this, I can see where Jeff is coming from, because that's what the show is. When you're working on it for the whole year, it's a rundown that's always moving and changing and shifting. But if you so what I did when I did the rundown was, anytime they gave out an award, I wrote award in all caps. So it was easy to scan the rundown and see. And man, they gave away a shit ton of awards in this year's show. They really did.
But how many were actually on the stage with the winner?
Not a lot, and I do agree with you.
That's how you prove to me that you care about these awards as awards. Again, it's not the show. That's not what the show is.
The lower third there, happy medium. That's what Jeff is trying to do with this show.
Well, Jeff has failed.
He has to please so many different types of people with this show. And here's the one thing I will say is, if my wife stumbles into the room while this is on, or my mom's slipping by and it's on, this is a good representation of the games industry for most people. To the core of the core, and truth be told, most of the people that actually watch it, it's not great, but it's a hard job, man. Think back to the VGAs on Spike. When they had
I'm aware of all this. It's also a hard job to make a video game, but I still fucking hated playing Redfall. I don't care. It's a bad way to do it. It's not working. It makes the awards feel like an afterthought, and it just feels rude. This year it felt rude to the people who won. It's never felt like that before.
The problem is, Matt, that nobody watches award shows and their ratings
then don't have the awards in it. Just make it another thing like the Summer Games Fest or whatever else.
But why would you not want them to recognize people at all?
Because they're not doing it properly already.
But it's better than nothing.
So just hand them out and make a press release about it and call it in. Don't make everybody fly into LA to do this shit.
By the way, okay, so we're just talking about the show right now. Look at that shot, Matt. Out of focus.
Yeah.
Because they have their cameras on autofocus at an awards show, dude. The camera, you can't see it because the graphic is over it. The camera's
focused on the neon in the background, yeah.
Yes.
I saw that a lot. Yeah.
Dude, that is amateur hour shit, man.
Yes, it is.
They had their cameras on autofocus for an award show. She is blurry almost every time they cut to her.
The cameras didn't want to focus on her for some reason. I don't know why. Like the cameras loved the background set, but that happened on a couple of things with Keeley too.
That's why you don't put it on autofocus. You manually focus on the talent.
Well, now it's focused on the award.
Right. Yeah.
The award's in perfect focus.
Matt, you know as well as I do, working in production, that is something that just does not happen. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I haven't seen that since I was doing camera stuff in college at football games.
Matt, that happens sometimes on our show because we don't have camera operators. The cameras just sit there, and every once in a while they'll get a little fuzzy or whatever. This is a podcast that we run on Twitch.
Also, this was interesting that
this makes me sick. This makes me sick.
Actually, no, she's okay.
This is the content creator of the year, some weird anime girl.
Right, but so Iron Mouse, I didn't know anything about Iron Mouse when she won, and I would have given it to People Make Games because they made that documentary about Disco Elysium and all the weird shit. Yeah. But I already knew that a documentary about the shady bullshit that happens in the game industry was not going to win at the Game Awards. So that's not what we're about here.
Yeah.
Iron Mouse is actually a chronically ill, bedridden woman who does streams through the VTuber thing because basically she is on oxygen. She can't basically host normally like you'd expect one to. So she uses that. And uses a voice changer to so she doesn't sound as whatever. But she does all this crazy shit and she interacts with everybody and she's super nice about things and she runs charity things. Every single person who designs or makes anything for her channel, she pays.
Oh wow.
I don't think I have ever seen a more universally positively considered Twitch streamer ever.
Wow.
I have not found a single human being who knows who she is or watches her has a single negative thing to say about her.
I had no idea what she was.
I didn't know about Iron Mouse
literally
either.
thought it was trolling.
I thought it was some kind of what
I thought it was the fans trolling.
I was is that a guy that's pretending to be a weird cute anime girl? And I looked it up to find out no, it turns out she's super legit, super
awesome.
Good, super cool.
That's great to hear. I really thought it was the fans trolling Jeff. And picking the worst option of all of them.
Oh no, it's not a fan voted one.
Oh, it's not?
No, the only fan voted one is the players, whatever that one thing is, and that was Baldur's
most anticipated or whatever.
No, it's the favorite game of the whole year. They voted it down from whatever number and down to 5 or 6, and then Baldur's Gate won. It was the one with Genshin Impact because it was any game. It didn't have to be this year release.
Gotcha.
But that was Baldur's Gate. That's the only player voted one. Everything else was the panel.
Yeah. Again, looking at the rundown, I felt like the mix of the awards and the performances and the premieres were pretty good. I do agree that they pushed some people off the stage a little too quickly.
I just don't think that's true. There's not enough awards given out on the thing.
No, I just told you there's a million of them, almost all of them.
No, I mean given out on the stage
but Matt,
to a winner.
Nobody's going to watch that, dude.
Then why are you calling them the Game Awards?
Matt, there's already award shows that do that. They're called the Dice Awards. Nobody cares. That award show is live streamed. The last time I watched a live stream of the Dice Awards, there were 1,100 people watching the Dice Awards.
But you could make
Nobody cares. That. You can't do this show and have it that way, Matt. You can't. Look, even the Oscars.
Well, then it's a failure from the beginning.
Look at the ratings of the Oscars. They're in a free fall. Every award show that is like that, where it's just boring ass.
I'm not saying
walk up, talk for 10 minutes. Here's
no one talked for 10 minutes. They talked for 30 fucking seconds.
I'm saying the other shows that do what you're purporting this show should do.
I'm not saying
the
that
ratings
they should
are all in a free fall. Why would you ever design your show that way?
Because they are still going to watch the fucking bullshit trailer announcements, whether there's awards between them or not. You can do whatever you want.
I disagree.
I don't.
I would not watch that.
You would.
I would not.
Of course you would.
I mean, I have to because it's my job.
Exactly.
But I would not watch it on my own volition ever. That's
you don't care you don't care what the people who actually make this shit have to say about their achievements up there.
If something bubbles up, they say something creative, it'll end up on social media, and I'll watch it there. I don't have to sit and watch a 3-hour show.
Okay, then the awards are pointless and they should just run trailers for 3 hours.
No, I didn't say that at all.
That's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying at all. You're just going to extremes. I thought it was a pretty
You're
good
going to extremes because I never said it should be the Oscars with no fucking trailers or interesting announcements or anything like that. I'm saying let them talk about what they're fucking being given and use your fucking brain when you're deciding what. If you insist on only giving like 5 awards out on stage with winners' acceptance speeches, use your fucking brain when it comes to which ones you're giving out. Because, yes, every other year Best RPG was given out as a fucking listicle, which is fine usually because it's some like random thing no one cares about or a dupe. But this year it was the fucking game of the year. It was the Baldur's Gate 3. And if you're only going to give people 30 seconds to fucking talk, maybe they get a full minute because they won 2 awards. That's what I'm saying.
No, again, I agree. Like, they should have given them more time. On top of that,
you can't
I don't think you should shoot for what the Oscars where they give them like 8 minutes up
They don't give them 8 minutes. They give them 60 seconds.
Really?
Yes. You don't cut off the fucking best actress.
Well, then that's
normally.
Really boring.
Go watch.
It seems like 8 minutes.
No, no one has ever talked as long as Christopher Judge did last year at the Game Awards on an award show. Ever.
And I do agree. Jeff was terrified by that. It kind of ruined his show last year, and he did overcorrect. Well, also, I agree.
The overcorrection should have been to fucking push Christopher Judge off the goddamn stage last year because you have to control your show. That was a failing of him, not him. Whoever's running the show. I mean, obviously, he can't run the show like that. He's trying to host it.
Yeah. But picking the awards, though, you know why they pick the awards they do. It's the ones where they can get the celebrity to come up on stage.
It's the same awards they give out every year. Like, it's the same awards.
It's always the ones where you can get the celebrities to show up. Best performance, stuff like that.
You got to give more than 30 seconds to a fucking award that's being accepted by a Japanese person who needs a translator.
Or who flew
to the other from the other side of the fucking planet.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So again, it's a hard job, man, to try to please people like us and to try to please people who are going to...
It's not a hard job to get this right.
And to please the sponsors. That's the other thing.
Well, who are the sponsors? That's what... See, so what's the...
Well, that's the biggest problem I have with this. I couldn't tell the difference anymore.
I mean, yeah, that's a totally different... But okay... You don't have time. I mean, it's arbitrary idea that you can't be more than 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, which is not true. You can go as long as you fucking want.
Arbitrarily, it should be 2 hours max.
Well, I mean, then you can have way less trailers.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with that.
But he's not apparently. But so what I'm saying is, like, you're not getting any money from the trailers that are just like announcement trailers, right? Like, that's not
no.
Cut 4 or 5 of the fucking indie game things no one gives a shit about and let people talk about their goddamn award.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
there you go.
That's a worthwhile cutoff. Although they don't show a lot of indie stuff in the show, let's be honest. Like, that is the stuff that they did have in the pre-show.
I mean, they do, though, because so many of these trailers were just games that have no publisher yet.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of indie stuff in here that looks like AA level stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
But, like, most of the stuff you saw here in this show being announced, even the stuff that's really interesting, like the game from that woman who everybody loves, whose name I can't remember, the Japanese woman who was
we're not going to talk about it. Is that even a game?
Yeah, I think it is.
I couldn't tell.
It looked like some kind of like Persona meets Jet Set Radio thing, but that doesn't have a publisher yet.
Yeah.
Like, so that's like literally the definition of an independent game, even if it doesn't have pixel art on it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what are you doing with like...
Here's what I wonder.
The presenters were talking longer than the winners, which is, I've never seen that before. Even in the most like egregious Oscars show or Golden Globes nonsense, I've never seen outside of a couple skits. Like, it's like, hey, you want some more time back for fucking Al Newman to talk about Zelda? Maybe don't do a 5-minute thing with Gonzo.
But Matt, the problem there is that at those award shows, it's all celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch an award show, the Oscars or the Grammys, like, people watch that, you know everybody who goes up on stage. If you watch this award show, most people, the only people that they know, if there wasn't a lower third there, I would argue even probably half of our audience wouldn't know who those people were.
That's not true. Because,
really? You think more than half our audience know who all the people are without lower
I'm saying what you're
third?
saying about other award shows. If in the Oscars, you know 5 people that get awards at that show. The 4 actors and the director. Maybe their screenwriter.
No, you're right. You're right. Like, a lot of the production-related stuff, people won't know who
that is simply not true.
Yeah.
That's true of every awards show, because at some point when you're honoring the people that make this shit, they're the people who aren't in front of the camera.
And that's probably why the ratings for all award shows are in the toilet.
Sometimes.
I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, it depends. Like, the celebrity thing matters, sure. It's why the Oscars and the Golden Globes are still better rated than the Tonys, which I actually do. I'm interested in live theater. I don't even know when the Tonys happen.
I don't either. Yeah.
Or the Grammy.
You know how much I love musicals.
But on the other hand, again, people know every single person who gets a Grammy for the most part, but no one watches that show.
Like
partly because
the Grammys, actually, to my point, that is the one show where almost everybody that goes up there, you know who they are.
But
because in the music industry, like music producers are celebrities in music.
But also the Grammys are always some of the worst rated because A, no one cares, and B, the Grammys suck.
They do.
Like it's not even that the Grammy show sucks. It's that the Grammys are wrong all the time.
On the awards,
like the award winners are ridiculous at the Grammys. Have been since we were children. I mean, how long did it take the Grammys to recognize hip hop as an actual form of music? You know, that's the kind of thing. At least we don't have that problem in most of the other award shows, including this one. Like, it's not like someone is going to reject Baldur's Gate 3 at the Game Awards because it was too innovative.
Well, it's like the Grammys Best Electronic Album. If you're somebody who's in the electronic scene, like, you didn't even listen to that album. Like,
you're like, that's not even electronic.
Like, I didn't even
that was an acoustic set. What are you doing? Like,
exactly. It's funny. The one final thing I want to say about the show in general was that I was sitting there watching, and like I saw Nintendo go up to get the award for Tears of the Kingdom or whatever, and then they go off stage, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, what do they think while they're sitting through a 3-hour award show? And they watch dozens and dozens of games get awards and accolades and all these people cheering them on and talk. And then they realize that none of those games ever release on their platform. Mm-hmm. It's like, hello? Does the light bulb not go off? And they're like, you know what? Maybe we should increase the power of our freaking console so that we have these games.
But then they probably look at their revenue and don't
They're
care.
like, well, whatever. It's just funny. Like Nintendo.
I'm sorry. Have you seen the eShop? Do you know how many softcore hentai games are in that? They are making. They're fine.
It's just funny. Like, Nintendo lives in its bubble.
Where's MILF Hunter on the PS5, I ask you?
It's just funny because Nintendo lives in its bubble in Kyoto, and like it just makes all this money, and it's like isolated from like the real world in a lot of ways. And I feel like the Game Awards is that one time where they're sitting there and they can't look away, and they're just like, holy crap, look how awesome these games look. And none of them are on our platforms. Like, it's, I don't know. I found it interesting, but.
No, it probably is an experience, but I'm sure they have nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think Aonuma would have the clout to say something about it, but every time he does interviews and talks about Miyamoto, it sounds like he really doesn't.
Yeah, like, why don't we release, like, okay, let's have a weaker powered Switch 2 that's a handheld. Why can't we have a more powerful Switch that's just a console only and it plays the same games?
I guess
you don't have to split your development.
In the end, I guess it's because they make tons of money doing what they do, and
they're like, why should we bother?
They're not really in competition with anyone.
You're right.
You know, it's like it's a good. I mean, after they kind of lost the fight with the GameCube. Like, that just became their strategy, and so far it works. The Wii U was a misstep, but it wasn't a fatal one. So, and they learned from it. So
yeah, it was almost fatal.
I mean, it wasn't great. No.
I mean, they do have so much cash; they could probably survive 2 failed generations, like no problem.
Yeah. And Cinetyke asks, "What's the cause that we don't get a more serious game award show? Is it actually it takes lots of money to make? I mean, partly, but like we do have, like you say, the DICE Awards and the Game Developers Choice Award." But they don't have a bunch of announcements and
they don't have the trailers and the World
People
Premiere.
watch this
also, by the way,
tons of great new games and trailers. Yeah. That's it.
They said the World Premiere is going away. It didn't go away. They said World Premiere like 80 times.
The header just went away.
Right, they just got rid of the bump.
Which made it harder to tell the difference between the trailers and the commercials.
That's my other biggest criticism of that show in general, is that figuring out what was editorial and what was paid marketing was almost impossible. They were even running crowd reaction noise over top of the paid content.
They left the audience mic on for the commercials.
That's a huge mistake.
Which is also extra funny because it reminded me that, because I've been a couple times to this live, and it's like, they show the commercials to the audience too. Yeah. Like, it's not just on the stream.
No, it's there if you're at the show.
Which is very funny.
The line was way too fuzzy this year. Like, he needs to figure out, you're right, like, not having that bump that says World Premiere made it muddier.
Which might have been the point.
Maybe. Because now that he can start selling, like...
I mean, it might have been a mix of being tired of having it made fun of, but if you did, why would you still say it in all the copy?
Every single time, over and over again. So anyway, that's the show. Let's talk about the awards. Now, Matt, you and I made some predictions for, I think, 4 awards last week. We did pretty well. Yeah. Our predictions for Best Action Game, I picked Armored Core 6. You picked Hi-Fi Rush or Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 won. Best Independent Game, you got it right, Cocoon. Mm-hmm. I picked Dave the Diver. I was wrong there. Best RPG, we both picked Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 won. And then Game of the Year, I picked Tears of the Kingdom, so I was wrong there. You picked Baldur's Gate or Zelda, so you got half right. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think we did pretty well. Any other...
I didn't expect Zelda to be as shut out as it was.
It got... I can't believe it. Like, it almost felt like
obviously we don't know what the voting percentages were, but like, it felt like it was weird. Baldur's Gate won some stuff that I thought it was weird that it won, and didn't win some stuff that I thought it was insane that it didn't win.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that Baldur's Gate won Best Voice Performance for a character that is basically an online meme.
Yeah.
And the telemetry, they actually put some telemetry up, and basically, Astarion is not even it's like the 4th or 5th most romance character in the game. He's not even that popular.
I don't understand
overall.
I didn't like him. He was like my least favorite character in the party.
As hell. But like,
so weird.
And then like I mean, I'm not a huge Baldur's Gate 3 stan here.
Yeah.
Like I like it, I recognize it, but I don't love it. Mm-hmm. The fact that it did not win Best Narrative or Best Game Direction is insane.
I know.
Like,
it is.
The fact that they basically reinvented how player choice works in storytelling and have branching paths that I can't even fucking explain to you how I'm like, and it didn't win Best Narrative and Best Game Direction.
There's a lot of conflict.
What?
Yeah.
And Alan Wake, I mean, no super disrespect to Alan Wake 2, but that's the same shit Remedy's done for 3 games now.
It really cleaned up. That's the other thing I was surprised about.
Right down to casting Sam Lake in live action footage.
Yeah. Matt, do you think that journalists are having second thoughts about Tears of the Kingdom, and maybe they're coming around to our view on that game a little bit more over time?
I don't know about that. I just think, I mean, it did win the most reasonable award for it to win.
It felt like they shoehorned it into that, though. Like,
what was action
wasn't it
adventure?
best like action adventure?
Action adventure, yeah, which is what it is.
I mean, most people consider it an action RPG.
Maybe there is no category for that,
right? But there were action RPGs in the RPG category, but there was
Lies of P for some reason,
right? Why wasn't Zelda the game that was in there instead of Lies of P?
But Breath of the Wild was an action adventure in its year too. I mean,
it just, I don't know. It reeked of
I would never call it an RPG.
Yeah.
Zelda's not. I mean,
I would. But
Zelda's not an RPG ever. Hasn't ever been.
It's as much of an RPG as Lies of P.
Lies of P at least has stats, but I don't think that should be in there either.
Yeah.
That's an action adventure. I mean, the Souls games are technically action RPGs, yes, but they're action adventure games with stats. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And even Zelda doesn't even have stats.
That's true. It just still felt like they're like, well, we know that one's going to win here, and we can't not give it any. That's literally like the only thing it won. So how does a game have like what did it end up with, a 96 or a 97 Metacritic?
Yeah.
And it was only worthy of one award at the Game Awards?
I mean, Spider-Man 2 was a 92 and it got nothing.
It's a 90, actually.
It's a 90 now?
Yeah. It's gone down since.
I was looking at...
which is crazy.
I was looking at... and Benson, we were looking at the previous Game of the Year nominee lists for the Game Awards and looking at like what was this or what was that. The weakest year by far, I think, was the year It Takes Two won.
What about the year that The Walking Dead won? Well, that was the Game Awards.
That wasn't the Game Awards.
Well, that was the Spike VGAs,
Awards.
Yeah.
But then the 10 Game Awards ceremony that year, what was it, 2018? That It Takes Two? Yes. Yeah. Every single Game of the Year nominee was in the 80s on Metacritic.
Yeah.
There were no 90s.
I mean, this was a banner year. It's one of the best years ever for video games.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it. I mean, if Zelda, a game that gets a 96 or a 97, gets one stinking award, that shows you right there.
Now, to be fair, part of that's because it wasn't qualified for a bunch of other awards.
Yeah.
But again, like, you could have been nominated for other things. Like,
I mean, the music, all the other stuff. Yeah. I mean, design.
What won music?
I don't remember. I don't know. I should have known.
Great awards show.
Yeah. I don't know.
I love Spider-Man too, but it doesn't shock me it didn't win anything like that.
The award that stood out the most
also,
for
I
me.
would not have nominated Yuri Lowenthal as the representative for that game.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I would have picked the guy who did Miles or the guy who did Harry.
Agreed.
Or even the guy who did Norman.
Yeah. The one thing that stood out the most for me with the actual awards was Cyberpunk 2077 winning Best Ongoing Game.
That was very fun.
That makes no sense to me.
Music was Final Fantasy 16, and that was actually well-deserved. Thank you, Vincent.
For Best Music?
Best Music.
That is well-deserved. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Cyberpunk 27 is not even a game as a service.
Yeah.
They're we put out an expansion pack, so now it's an ongoing game?
Well, no, they fixed it over time. It's like what seems to be what they've given this for, which is, I mean, Cyberpunk is an amazing comeback story from how it launched, but like...
It's just not an ongoing game.
Well, it feels like somewhere along the line, someone got very confused about why No Man's Sky was in that category, because No Man's Sky is an online game with a bunch of multiplayer stuff and new quests and group quests but like Cyberpunk is just a broken game that got fixed.
It's a single-player game that was broken.
It'd be like giving out like Best Ongoing Game to The Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition. should.
Like, it should have won, like, comeback game or something. That category doesn't exist, but
also
that's what it should have won.
But that category also shouldn't exist because don't encourage that shit.
Right. Exactly. Touche.
And this feels kind of like it did encourage that shit.
It just, like, I just can't see journalists or colleagues giving Cyberpunk best ongoing game. They know it's not a game as a service. Like, I try to never say things seem a little weird with anything, but this seems a little weird.
I don't know about that. I mean, you know me, I'm very willing to chalk things up to incompetence versus malice. You know, I think it was a dumb choice.
That's a dumb choice by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, the editorial committee.
What's interesting to me is that the guys from Poland were there.
What's interesting to me is that it was nominated, because here's the thing. So I used to be a part of the editorial council. Now all suddenly I work at a smaller publication and my opinion doesn't matter anymore. Figure that one out. But I was on it for years and years. And basically what they do is they send you like a sheet that has like all the nominees on it. And then you rate them, like, I think it was like 1 through 5, each of the nominees or whatever. Like, I didn't know where the nominees were coming from. Mm-hmm. So somebody put Cyberpunk 20, if it's still like it used to be, somebody put Cyberpunk 2077 in the list of nominees for them to vote on. So that had to happen, first of all. So, again, I'm not saying there's something shady going on, but that seems really weird to me.
Well, at some point, there had to be some kind of panel or committee that decided what the nominees were.
Right. And that was, like, at least back then, it was the show team. Like, the separate TV side picked that stuff. And there was, like, an editorial...
I would be surprised if Jeff did it that way. Especially because I know enough of the TV side just doesn't know anything about games.
Well, so at least, again, back when we used to do those shows together, Jeff and I, there was an editorial person on the show team who worked with the industry, and like they had never been like an EIC or anything like that, but they were pretty well embedded in the industry. Like, I respected them, like the person who did it. Like, I knew him pretty well and he knew his stuff. But he was the one, I think, that ultimately came up with the nominees that then the council had to rate like 1 through 5, and then that's how they figure out who the final nominees are and the winner is. So I don't know, that seemed really weird to me because it's not a game as a service. It's not an ongoing game. So I don't know. It's conveniently...
It could feel like it at times.
Conveniently, there's a big debut coming here in the next year or two for the next Witcher game. I don't know. Just seemed a little weird to me. But...
I wouldn't think that... It wouldn't seem weird to me. It just seems stupid. Yeah. The only thing that makes me, like, not wholly dismiss that idea is the fact that people from Poland flew to Los Angeles to be there.
Right.
And it's like, why would you think that game was going to win anything?
Right.
I guess maybe you might think Idris Elba was going to win Best Performance, and then someone would have to go up and accept it because clearly...
He didn't show
clearly
up,
Idris Elba has better things to do than show up in that shit.
Yep. But he was not there.
No. Well, doesn't he live in England?
I think he does, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not coming from England.
Yeah,
if I'm Idris Elba, I'm not
even if I'm working in L.A.
Like, I'm not going all the way out to Santa Monica. Come on. Not Santa Monica. Where are they? They're downtown. Downtown. I'm still not going downtown either.
But otherwise, I think most of the awards were passable. Like, there wasn't anything else that really, like, stood out that I was like, that doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, for the most part, they got it right. I mean, obviously, your opinions are going to vary on what you think Game of the Year is. And maybe...
I mean, I think Baldur's Gate not getting narrative and direction is silly.
Yeah.
Like, even as someone who did not particularly like most of the way the game worked, if you don't think the way narrative is delivered in that game is the most impressive thing in that department you've seen all year, I don't know what to tell you. Like, Alan Wake is weird. Like, I'll give it that. It's like weird and wacky, and it's got the musical chapter and all that. I mean, which they played on stage, so I mean, you don't really need to play the game
it now.
You've seen it. You're fine. It's good. That's what it is. You're good.
Yeah.
Except for the bad lip syncing.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know another way to describe, like the thing going forward from 2023 that's going to change how people design games is the narrative design in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Like, and people are going to strive for that. And in fact, I'm playing Rogue Trader this week, the Warhammer game, which is basically an Infinity Engine choice-driven RPG, and I'm missing the structural changes of Baldur's Gate 3 in that game. It feels primitive now.
Interesting.
And I mean, at least it lets me say what I want to say while telling me whether I'm going to be able to say it without rolling a fucking die. Yeah. But like, the structure and the presentational style and the fact that one decision you make 3 hours into the game can come back and mean something 70 hours later, that's crazy. I don't know how many fucking whiteboards they had in that office, the diagram, all that shit. But
Yep.
It's amazing. And to just give that to Remedy doing what Remedy always does is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
The Alan Wake 2 stuff felt like recency bias to me.
I felt that way as well. I was shocked that it won so many awards. Obviously, Matt and I aren't as high on that game as a lot of other journalists are.
Also, like, game direction usually to me says that, like, your game is fun, and that's not... Alan Wake, I thought, was boring to play as a game.
Yeah.
Like,
Other than that Alan Wake musical performance, I also found the musical performances this year to be boring AF.
I like the Hellblade one, okay?
I didn't. I thought it was awful. And then
I mean, I like a good satanic ritual, so...
Like the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I thought that song was terrible.
Oh, that wasn't very good.
And then at the end when they...
I forgot that was in there.
And then I thought they were all bad. And then at the end when they do the Game of the Year and they do the montage of the songs, like, does every Game of the Year of this year, Mommy, have horrible music? That was awful. Like, there wasn't a catchy damn song in that whole freaking thing. Like,
there wasn't much in there. I knew Spider-Man when it came out.
This guy was one of the best moments of the Game Awards.
He was good.
Talking about his deceased father and how he used the inspiration to make his game. This was one of the best moments of the whole damn show to me. Like, but I thought the musical performances were bad.
Yeah, it's because he got more time to talk than all the winners combined.
He did actually, yeah. But I'm glad he did.
Because he got to fucking tell
he had
a story
to tell. Yeah.
As opposed to Anthony Mackie, who just spent the whole time talking to audience members we couldn't hear.
Yeah. Or the guy from the Twisted Metal TV show. Is that him?
That's Anthony Mackie, yeah.
Who just kept pointing to people in the crowd. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Nobody can see the people in the crowd.
You can't see them or hear them. Yeah.
You don't know what to talk about.
And they didn't even try.
No, they didn't even cut
most
away.
telecasts would attempt to find what he was showing. And like,
when you got your camera on autofocus, you can't go moving it, Matt.
That's true.
All right. So anyway, that's the show. And we have a lot to get to, so we got to get going here.
We didn't even get very many shots of the really excited that flute violin player, whoever it was.
Oh, yeah.
That guy was like a big viral
so
thing
the
last
B-roll,
year.
what I figured out, Matt, is what throws up the copyright strikes are the musical performances. And so I just made sure with the B-roll, I just had the awards and that's it. That way this show will not get demonetized going forward. So I had to make some compromises, unfortunately. Let's get to the debuts. There's like 20 of them. We need to get through all of them. First up, I feel like I hate to say this, Matt. I hate to say to me, the big story, the big game from the Game Awards was Kojima's OD. I hate to admit it.
No, I don't agree.
It's the one everyone's talking about afterwards.
Yeah, because it's nothing.
He
It's
gave
literally
him
nothing.
20 minutes on stage.
It's nothing.
To filleted himself.
He stood up there for 20 minutes and said nothing. And halfway through, he felt the need to reassure everyone it is, in fact, a game, which tells it. And then Jordan Peele got to come out and reveal that he's made the worst choice of his career so far. And I mean, we don't know anything. He didn't fucking say anything.
On Sifted, this trailer, that is nothing. It's just facial animation. Did double what any other trailer from the Game Awards did.
Yeah, because it's fucking weird. But like,
I'm just telling you.
Kojima gets such a fucking free pass for
he really does.
Jack
I agree with you.
Shit. He stood up there because Jeff likes him, and he talked for about nothing for 10 minutes.
I agree with you.
Nothing about this fucking game.
I agree.
Fucking bullshit.
I agree 1,000%. You know I do, but people don't agree with us, man. People worship Kojima. It's funny. It's kind of sad, honestly.
I have not seen many people talking about this game outside of the whole thing, how stupid it was.
Yeah. I'm just telling you the numbers on Sifted.
He has alienated the chuds because one of the actors is trans. And there's like pictures of him hanging out with her, and everyone's like, why is Kojima hanging out with a degenerate? And so it's like, oh, we've lost you. Okay, good.
Good.
So props to Kojima on that one, because he doesn't fucking give a shit about your bigoted nonsense. But like,
I mean, how blatant was this with him
the fucking
giving
baiting,
him
the fact that the door is the PT door? Fuck you.
I mean, he
like,
legitimately gave him what, 10 minutes? Is that how long? I mean, that's insane.
I went off and did something else for a while and came back and they were still all going.
And they had nothing to say about the game.
And then like Jordan Peele's up there, it's like, oh, I'm very excited about da-da-da and be doing one of the, you know, but as one of the horror directors, and then Kojima said something. It's like, we're working with a lot of people though. Yeah. And it's like, did you just fucking shut down Jordan Peele, dude? Are you out of your fucking mind? Jordan Peele has just created the most amazing streak of thrillers since Alfred fucking Hitchcock.
Yeah.
No one's had a batting average like him since him.
Yeah.
And you just be like, oh, we got some people. I'm probably going to call Guillermo tomorrow or something. It's like, what are you doing?
But
dude?
Matt, you know that people in the film and TV industry, if you ask them, name one video game developer, if they can name anybody, it's going to be Kojima.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a Miyamoto.
Because he keeps showing up at the fucking parties, but they haven't made any movies out of his games, have they?
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, like, that's the one person that they know. And so if they're like, if we're going to work in games, we're going to cross over, he's the guy we want to work with. They see Norman Reedus doing it. I mean, you see all these other celebrities working with him. Like,
sure, but then you saw Matthew McConaughey, an actual like award-winning superstar actor.
Yeah.
Not to
making his own game.
Not to denigrate Jordan Peele, but he's working on the most interesting thing that was announced in the whole night.
Yeah,
we won't see it for years.
We'll talk about it in a second, actually, in just a couple seconds. What do you think this game is, Matt? OD.
Garbage. I think it's fucking bullshit.
Do you have any idea what you think it might be?
Of course I don't have any idea what it is. Who fucking knows? Like, it's like asking me what do I think the fucking Death Stranding game's gonna be when it's got full of whales and oil and a baby on a beach and it turns out to be a fucking UPS delivery game.
Well, Matt, I'm asking you because you're smart and you're creative and sometimes you actually come up with ideas for stuff.
I listened to what he said and I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't either. I have no idea what it is.
No fucking clue. And there's like Silent Hill references. There's a PT door there. I mean,
well, the door opens in her eyes eventually. Yeah. See the door opening right there in her eyes?
I don't know.
That's the PT door, apparently. And whatever walks in through the PT door scares the living crap out of her. But again, I'm like you. I have no idea what this is. None.
No, it's not. Could be anything.
And we may not know for another 2 years.
Yeah. Although, I mean, he made
Xbox exclusive though.
Yeah, he's gone to Xbox this time. He made Death Stranding in a very respectable amount of time.
He did.
So
yeah,
maybe less. Maybe it won't be that long.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what you guys watched the most on Sifted, was that trailer for OD from Kojima. Of everything at the Game Awards, that's the thing that you guys watched the most. The thing that I think is the biggest and the best from the show
One
is...
Supermaster Gamer asked, I don't know why Kojima doesn't go make a movie instead. Because no one will give him money to make a movie, because as much as they may know who he is, they have seen his work.
Yeah, they know he can't make a movie.
No. I mean,
not one worth dumping a bunch of money into.
He'd be lucky to come up with like a low-end John Carpenter film.
Yeah.
Like
that he funds himself.
Yes.
To me, the biggest thing and the coolest thing that I saw at the Game Awards in 2023 was Light No Fire. The new game from Hello Games, the studio.
Yeah, I did enjoy this. It's like, okay, Sean, announce the new game and don't get too huge or too weird expected. We're making Earth. It's just like, oh my God.
The first ever real open world game. That's what they called
Mountains
it.
taller than Everest. I'm like, Sean...
Yeah.
We need to keep you off stages or something.
Here's what blew my mind, is that he said 12 people are making this game. 12 people.
Yeah, Hello Games is not a big company.
That's insane. For a game of this scope, for 12 people to work on it. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It really is nuts.
Here's the thing about this one to me, and you know me. No Man's Sky, 1,000 hours in No Man's Sky. This to me is like, oh, you took the interesting parts out of No Man's Sky and made the rest into a game. Technical achievement, amazing here. This does not look like something I want to play.
No?
It looks like just another survival game.
It looks like an open world survival game with the medieval bent to it.
Yeah, with a lot more travel time because everything's so fucking huge.
Right.
Like, that is not a selling point to me.
I mean, this is built on the No Man's Sky engine.
Oh, very clearly. It's very clearly the same.
I mean, obviously it's improved.
I'd know this was Hello Games if you told me. If you
just showed you
if you showed me this, I'm like, oh, that looks like Hello Games landscape engine.
But this, to me, is the most ambitious, interesting thing of everything that was shown. It could end up being a disaster, but
yeah, I mean, I love that on Twitter. He was making fun of himself for the whole that we're gonna do Earth thing, and then the Cyberpunk official account was like, "It's okay, you can patch it till it's good after it comes out."
No way.
That's a real exchange that happened.
That's great. I like that. I like the Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red are like,
at least aware of each other.
They'll take the piss out of themselves. That's cool. But to me, that far and away, this is the most interesting thing that was shown. And again, it could end up being garbage and nobody wants to play, but at least it's ambitious and is trying something.
I mean, it doesn't speak to me instantly the way space exploration does, but it's they do tend to give me something I'm interested in, even when they keep doing those weird updates, which apparently are going to continue. Next 10 years.
Bonkers. It's really crazy. And again, when you think about a game like Light No Fire, and you think about No Man's Sky, and that it also launched a little rough, and they stuck with it and turned it into exactly what we thought it was going to be, it gives me a little bit more faith that Light No Fire will be good. So we'll see. Next up.
It's also not a great title.
No. Yeah, they may change it.
Doesn't really tell you what it is. No Man's Sky at least is an evocative, like,
right.
You see a spaceship, you hear that, you go, oh, I get what this is, kind of thing. Like No Fire makes it sound like they don't want you to cook it.
And then you run a trailer full of people lighting fires.
Fires everywhere. What are you doing?
Next up, and we don't have a lot of media for this, unfortunately, Marvel's Blade. It is a Marvel game that is going to be an Xbox exclusive. Yeah. So Xbox striking back here. They're like, okay, you got Spider-Man 2.
we got
Blade. Being made by Arcane Leon. which has made a couple really great games. I also feel like this is probably in its wheelhouse at least a little bit.
When I saw the arcade, I thought this was like Redfall, like
right.
DLC. I'm like, are you putting Blade in Redfall? What is this shit? But like, you got my attention.
Well, yeah, Blade is obviously like it should be an M-rated game. Like it's probably not going to pull. Sure. It's going to be crazy violent, not pull any punches.
I mean, the movie's going to be R-rated. So it's
which again for Marvel, that's not normal. So.
I mean, it will be after next year, Deadpool 3.
It'll be changing.
They're branching out on that, and I mean, clearly this was probably originally intended to be some kind of synergy with the movie.
Yeah.
Now we don't know when the movie is supposedly coming out. It would be good to have in their wheelhouse because Mahershala Ali as Blade is a big draw. I mean, you got an Oscar-winning actor playing Blade. Why is it taking you 7 years to make this movie? It's a guy killing vampires. Just get on with it. I'm interested, but also like they don't. Arcane Leon doesn't really make a lot of stuff I like outside of Prey, and I feel like this probably has some Dishonored DNA in it, just from the sword element. Yeah. I hope they let me use the sword without penalizing me for being a murderer or something.
I mean, it seems like that's why Marvel signed with them was because of the games that they've made in the past. So.
I mean, it could be very interesting. I mean, Blade is a very interesting character, and there's a compelling world to be had there. Setting it in Paris is interesting.
Yeah, because
like
that's right. It's set in Paris.
I felt like that kind of tied in with some of the things we've talked about with open world games, where we're kind of tired of the same settings over and over again. Well, last time I had an open world in Paris was probably the Saboteur, and that was like 11 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, let's do a Paris. Do a Paris game.
That was Pandemic's game, right?
Yeah, it's the last game, I think.
Yeah, before they also died.
Let's do a vampire hunting Marvel game in Paris. Awesome.
Yeah, I think this game, as it gets closer, is going to build a bunch of hype.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like it's 2025, if 2026, maybe.
Probably. Yep.
But that's about when the movie will hit, so it's about probably works out pretty well.
It'll probably work out. Yep. Next up, the game that they finished the awards with, and I was kind of surprised at that, Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, it is a huge franchise. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's going to be probably the top-selling game of
everything in there
shown in the show.
Yeah, but this trailer was really, like.
Oh, I mean, I don't like Monster Hunter anyway. It's just like, come murder a bunch of innocent animals for no reason.
I mean, the whole story around this trailer was like, there's a new mount. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, the mount seems to be the big gimmick. Or it can fly, it can jump, it can climb.
Yeah, but other than that, like, this is just a really boring...
It still looks as clunky as hell.
It does, even in this trailer. Yep. And this is all they gave us?
I enjoyed that people were like complaining, like, what are we going to call this? Because Monster Hunter World is already MHW.
Yeah.
So what do you call them?
This Monster Hunter Wilds. You just type this shit out.
You go MHY.
Yeah.
Or you Mohuai.
Yeah.
It'd be Mohuai.
Yeah. So this trailer...
They call it Monhun in Japan.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, so the abbreviation in Japan is Monhun.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. This is all we get, and we're not getting more until this summer. They said that they'll finally show us more of the game. But even hardcore Monster Hunter fans really struggled to pull anything of
there's not a whole
relevance out of this, unfortunately. Just really a teaser trailer, and we'll show you a new mount and kind of where we're headed on that. And that was pretty much it. But, again, he closed the show on it. Do you think that was the right call?
I mean... probably commercial-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, that is going to be the biggest seller of anything that was shown in this show.
I did notice, though, like, there was hardly any crowd reaction when it came on.
No.
Yeah. I mean... You kind of want more than that for your finale.
But it's like I don't know. I mean, some of this is probably disappointment from people who are expecting to see other things that weren't there.
Yeah.
Like, there was no Elden Ring. There was no From of any kind. There was no Nintendo of any kind. There was no, ending on Monster Hunter is probably the least impressive ending they've ever done for a Game Awards show. I mean, I don't think they had many impressive reveals or showings on this show.
Well, we're only about quarter of the way through. We still got a bunch more to talk about.
I'm not saying they didn't have a lot. I'm just saying there wasn't no Silk Song.
Setting the house on fire.
No, I mean, there was a lot of stuff missing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously no Dragon Age because they'd already made their announcement. No GTA 6 because they'd already made their announcement, which I called. I said they were going to do that.
Yeah.
Like 3 days before the Game Awards, we're going to drop the trailer and walk away, and that's exactly what they did.
Also, I think I predicted a shadow drop for Baldur's Gate 3 Xbox.
Yeah, which they did, but no one knew because they cut off the acceptance speech before he could announce it. So well done, everyone.
And then Microsoft might be a little pissed off that Monster Hunter got the closing because Hellblade 2 was also in this show.
Yep.
And Jeff did not deem it worthy to close the show. Instead, he chose Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly more interested in this, but again, Monster Hunter is the commercial juggernaut.
Yeah.
Like that's the one that's going to sell 10 million copies.
Yeah.
But we got a release year?
Yeah. So now we know it's coming next year.
Maybe.
Probably. Who knows?
Sorta.
Like, what did you think of this trailer?
I liked it okay. I am disappointed that the combat doesn't seem to really have evolved since the first one at all. And I mean, not to be too down on it, but I spent a fair amount of this trailer wondering what the hell is taking so long.
I know.
If that's what this is, like, this thing better be one giant expansive monster of a game, because otherwise I don't know what took so long. It doesn't look like they reinvented the gameplay at all.
I was disappointed in this trailer, honestly.
I mean, it looks gorgeous.
It's pretty, but it just didn't make me excited to want to play the game. That's what I've struggled with this game from the beginning. It's like, make me excited to want to play it. Like,
well, it didn't make me excited to play it the way that previous one did, with the giant weird thing crawling through the beach and stuff. This looked more like Hellblade 2 as I would have imagined it after I'd played Hellblade 1.
It's almost like foreboding, and like I don't want to play it. Like, it's almost kind of turning me away from it. Like,
I wouldn't say that, but I mean, Hellblade is not a pleasant experience.
No, it's
really.
not. I mean, it's a game about psychology, but still, it's like, it just doesn't look fun, I guess is the best way I could put it.
I don't know. Like, I'm very curious about how what we're seeing gameplay wise in this matches up with what we saw of that beach trailer from before. Like, is that late in the game? Is that early game and you're separated from all those people and she has to find her way back? Like, but, I'm not sure the way, because that other trailer did sort of feel like maybe something you'd start a game with a bang with, and then you never really do anything like that again, God of War 3 style.
It seems like the whole damn game's set in the dark.
Like, I mean, it's Hellblade.
It's like, I feel like I'm always struggling to see what the hell's going on in all the trailers for this. Like, look, I hope I'm proven wrong. And
I mean,
it's
it is a very dark and shadow-driven game. One thing I found with even the original one and the remastered version, you got to set those brightness settings per monitor. Like, my brightness settings on my TV for that game are completely different than the brightness settings on my monitor. Like, it's very sensitive to the HDR settings and stuff. So I'd imagine that's a hard thing to broadcast properly.
But I was a little disappointed in it. But we do finally have a release date. It is coming out next year sometime. But they didn't give us even a quarter. They're just like 2024 release window.
I don't know if I'm even confident enough in that to put it on the fantasy team.
No. Oh, I definitely. You can draft away. I am not drafting Hellblade 2.
I'll put that motherfucker in slot 10 if you let me. But that's about it.
Okay. Next up, a game called, and I'll be honest, this might have been the coolest thing that was shown at the Game Awards, The Last Sentinel. It is... So it's made by Lightspeed Studios. It's a studio that was founded here in LA by a guy from Rockstar who worked at Rockstar through like Red Dead, Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead 2. This is his brand new studio. It is owned by Tencent, so they have plenty of backing, plenty of money. They are making AAA video games. They are making big budget games. They're not making little stuff like a lot of other Tencent studios do. This is all CG, by the way. This is not in-engine, just so you know. But the game itself is going to be an open-world action-adventure, not action RPG. An open-world action-adventure set in a dystopian Tokyo. And this trailer is just awesome. Like, it tells a story. It's a great story. There's triumph. There's heartbreak. It all happens in, like, 90 seconds, which is the sign of a good trailer. If you can make all those emotions happen in such a short period of time, you get the badass who comes in and takes out the bad guys. There's the mystery of who is the good guy, and then the helmet comes up.
But it's so slick in CG. They're like, oh, this game is not coming for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, this might be next gen.
Well, they're saying, I mean, as of right now, they're saying 2025 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. You're right, though. 2025, that's probably a pipe dream. But as far as, like, the premise, the idea, this trailer is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
One of the best trailers of the year, in my opinion. Auspicious debut, I guess is the best way I could put it. But you're right. Maybe. It doesn't really show us or tell us really.
Yeah, it's not a game yet.
Yeah, it's just a concept in CG right now, but a great, great video game trailer.
I like the setting.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, a game that we've already talked about a couple times, a game called Exodus. It is coming from a studio in Austin called Arctite Entertainment. It is made up of former BioWare employees, which will make all of us very, very happy.
Former Naughty Dog, too.
Yep.
And the lead guy is one of the leads from... the original Baldur's Gates, KOTOR 1, and Dragon Age Origins. So You don't
pedigree
get much,
on this.
Don't get much more pedigree than this.
Yep.
This looks like a pretty solid spiritual successor to Mass Effect.
And the studio did some interviews afterwards. It said that expect the game to be more like Mass Effect than Starfield. Makes sense, obviously, because they all worked on Mass Effect. It's set 40,000 years in the future. And it works with like some crazy like time dilation effect. It's one of the key elements of the story.
This is the one with Matthew McConaughey.
Yep. He is the lead voice actor for the lead protagonist.
Which I don't know if I would have known unless they told me. He doesn't sound like himself. He's doing an actual performance.
I know.
Beyond his normal...
He's being a voice actor. Yeah.
There's no all right coming from this one.
Yep. And then the whole plot is centered around a conflict between humanity and other alien races in the Centauri cluster. And as Matt said, Matthew McConaughey voices the lead character. This game is going to build in hype as its release date gets nearer. It is coming for everything. It's even coming for last gen, I believe. Or no, it is next gen only. I'm sorry. Current gen only, Matt.
Yeah,
it's PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. And as of right now, they're saying late 2024. I don't think that's going to happen. But the game is looking awesome. This is one we're going to end up talking about a lot here on GameFace. Don't forget it. It's called Exodus. Next up, kind of a shadow drop. God of War Ragnarok Valhalla free DLC. It actually launches today.
Yeah, launched at 9 a.m.
It is live right now if you want to go play it. It is free if you own the base game. Just like they did with their other game, it is like a single player, like horde mode, roguelite type thing.
It does have a story, and it does take place after the game.
Yeah.
So don't finish the game before you play this.
Yeah. This feels like this is PlayStation's kind of middling game as a service model.
It's like, it's kind of how they kind of easily extend the single player epic drama games.
They're like, we'll put in like a horde mode, roguelite thing.
Which, as long as you're making combat as interesting as God of War and Last of Us 2, sure.
Totally fine. And they're free. That's the cool thing about it all. Yeah. You're not paying for them, so they're just bonuses, and they will keep the games alive for at least a little bit longer.
More banter between Kratos and Mimir is great. One thing I'm interested in is that, actually, the two interesting things about this to me is that you don't have your son with you, so like that changes the combat, and there's a bunch of enemies from the original God of Wars in them that haven't been seen since the old God of Wars.
And obviously they're now,
because being in Valhalla, he's having to fight all the people he's killed. Basically,
that's I'm really what it is.
Please let me confront that fucking guy he kicked down the sea serpent's neck in the first game.
The guy he ripped his head in half.
Yeah,
who was that? Was one of the gods, wasn't it?
That was God. Which one?
That was from God of War 3, I think, where he ripped the guy's head in half, like opened his mouth and just ripped it apart.
After like smashing him?
He had him down by the ground and he just goes,
I think that was Hercules.
Was it?
Hercules is the one where
Or Apollo, wasn't it?
Maybe it was Apollo. Hercules is the one where the death of Hercules was inspired by the guy being pounded to death by a fire extinguisher in Irreversible.
Oh.
I know that.
Which is one of the most brutal movie scenes ever.
Yeah, except for the other brutal scene in that movie.
Right.
Like, Irreversible is... I don't recommend it, but it's...
I recommend it. I think it's really good, but it's a hard watch.
It's really good, but I'm not going to be responsible for anybody having to sit through that.
Touche. So anyway, I think that's pretty cool. If Sony keeps doing this with the single player games.
Who it was. Helios.
Oh, was it Helios?
The guy whose jaw he ripped off.
Yep, it was Helios. You're right. Yep. Emperor Dread also thought it was Apollo, though. I wonder why we both thought that.
Apollo is also a sun god. That's why. Helios is the sun, but Apollo is the god of the sun.
Right.
So it's understandable.
Yep. So anyway, I hope PlayStation continues doing that. They put out these cool little extra modes for their single player games. I'm totally fine with it. Next up, something that made a big impact for me, but maybe not everybody else, was a trailer for Sega's upcoming games.
Oh no, I was into that.
Well, you and I'm
a Sega person.
But
more Shinobi, yes.
It debuts 5 reboots for Sega. So Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Shinobi, Golden Axe, all in development. Brand new versions.
Streets of Rage.
And Streets of Rage, right. But they've already rebooted. Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage never really went away.
We just got Streets of Rage 4 like a year and a half ago. So that's why I didn't mention it. But like those other 4 are a big deal. Although that last Golden Axe game from, I think, was it PS2 or PS3?
That was Xbox 360, PS3. Yeah.
That was terrible.
Beast Rider.
It was so bad.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, it was awful.
I'm hoping that these reboots are a little better. However...
They have to be.
Like...
I will say this. I do not believe that the Jet Set Radio magic can be recaptured. I really don't
either. What do you think of how that looks?
It looks fine, but like I don't believe, like, they're never gonna get the music right.
Shinobi looks good.
Shinobi looks amazing.
Yep.
Golden Axe looks all right.
Yeah.
But I do not believe. I simply think it's a different time and different era, and I have a very hard time believing they can capture the magic of Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi properly again.
Crazy Taxi, I think, looks awful.
Yeah,
it looks like it's made by some like B team or something.
It looks like a mobile game.
Yeah,
in a weird way. Shinobi is definitely the winner of this whole team. Agreed. To me.
Yep.
That's exactly what I want a Shinobi game to be.
Yeah, I'm glad that all these are all coming back, and they're not just going to let them die. But
I would like to see, if you got some time, I'd like to see remasters of the PS2 Shinobi games.
Yeah,
Shinobi and Nightshade.
No, they were
nice to bring those up to modern standards.
I agree. But this made me really excited, seeing all this stuff coming back. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope they turn out okay.
For a second, I was like, oh my God, are they making a Smash Brothers game? Yeah. I don't want to do it. It's like, yeah, but no.
Wouldn't be a bad idea, honestly.
They have the people for it. They did a pretty good Puzzle Quest clone out of Sega stuff.
Dude, I forgot that they also mentioned Virtua Fighter. However, they're talking about like turning it into some like over-the-top like fighter with like crazy finishers and stuff. Mm-hmm. They're like, we don't want to bring it back because it's too boring compared to other. That's why I like it.
Oh, yeah, that's why I like it, but I mean, that's why it never caught on here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very technical fighting game, and it's very low on flash. Yeah. It's probably maybe my favorite fighting franchise, honestly.
It's my favorite 3D fighter, easily.
And they're like...
Always has been.
They're like, if we bring it back, we're going to turn it into something else. And I was like, well, screw you then.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm worried about with some of these other ones.
Yep.
Jet Set Radio is just so defined by the Wavemaster music, mm-hmm. And all those people are gone. That they don't exist anymore. I mean, you better be going to get those guys back again.
They did say that most of the people who worked on the original are working on this.
I just all that music is sort of like a flash of that time, of basically of the Japanese kind of hip hop take on. I mean, they're using Eazy-E samples from like 15 years earlier. Like it was just there was nothing else like it. Like it was so singular. And then like you play something
now Japanese hip hop is just hip hop.
You play something like Bomb Rush, whatever the hell that was, and it's just generic nonsense. It's just like.
Well, it's just an imitation.
Yeah.
It didn't have the soul. And we'll see if this game has the soul, because it may not. But we'll see.
It's going to be that's going to be the toughest one, I think.
Yep. Next up, Jurassic Park Survival. In a land of action RPGs, this is another old school action adventure. It's also coming for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. They did not announce a release date, but I thought this looked pretty good.
I mean, I think visually it looks good. It was a little concerning to me that almost every scene is just a remake of a scene from the movies. Yeah. Like
even the scene where she's on the floor and the raptor's in the room.
Like there's no original ideas in this whole trailer.
It's like they couldn't figure out one thing to do that hasn't been done in the films already for the first trailer for this game.
Part of the problem with Jurassic Park is that the original movie is a cautionary tale about needless and heedless and commercially driven science exploitation. There's not really much else to say about that, and there certainly is no way to say it better than the original movie already said, so they just sort of turned the franchise into killer dinosaurs, which is not what Jurassic Park is. So they're just going to keep doing basically
it's the same
Dino
scene.
Crisis.
I feel like the same scene is in every
it's
single
in the same room.
Jurassic Park. Right, it's the same room even. And then you leave like someplace where you can actually lock the doors to go out into the woods.
Yeah, not
where
not
you're
ideal.
A sitting duck. But otherwise,
and like the Dilophosaurus shot for shot. In
I
places
know.
Here.
I feel like
she's even wearing a yellow shirt.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like a lot of the Jurassic Park games are like spin-offs now. Like I want to play an action game based on Jurassic Park. Like I'm ready for that. That's what we're going to get with this at the very least. So, I don't know. I thought it looked pretty good, at least interesting. I think it's made by Saber Interactive.
If I were running the Jurassic Park license, I'd be looking at all these people that are constantly asking for Dino Crisis.
Right.
And just make that.
Yeah. Or, it's perfect for an open world game. You just said it. It's Jurassic Park. A big open world. Like, it's right for it, but I don't know. We'll see. Again, this is being made by Saber Interactive, which lowers my hype for it a little bit. Although Saber's pretty good as far as B teams are concerned, but it's not going to be like crazy over the top quad A gigantic budget game, but just an action adventure set in that universe is cool by me. Next up, a game called No Rest for the Wicked. This game is being made by Moon Studios. And Moon Studios makes the Ori and the Will of the Wisp, Ori and what was the other one? The Blind Forest. It's the next game from that studio. It's an isometric hack and slash action RPG, and word is that this game is make or break for Moon Studios. If this game is not a success, Moon Studios says that it will go away. So if you like the games that Moon Studios is making, again, the Ori games, you might want to think about supporting this one.
They might want to think about not mistreating their employees.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. In the last couple years, there's been some stories about Moon Studios that have not been flattering at all.
Does not sound like a good place to work.
It does not, yeah. So I'm guessing they cleaned up their backyard on that one.
I'm guessing they didn't.
Or maybe not.
I'm guessing they fired the people complaining about it and told everyone else to shut up and make the game.
That could be. That
seems to be how it usually goes.
It does kind of seem to go that way. But I will say this, regardless of what they do with their employees or whatever, I do like Moon Studios games.
I mean, the Ori games are great.
Yeah.
You can't argue with the results of abusing people, I guess.
But this is a huge departure from what they usually make.
It's very different.
The art, I like it, though, a lot. Like we also
I like it. My only thing is, like, how do you make an isometric hack and slash interesting for that long?
Yeah. It's hard to tell stories with that perspective as well. We even saw it with Diablo 4.
For a second, I thought this might have been, when the trailer first started, I was like, is this Fable?
No. Still haven't seen that. Kind of thought we might see it. Still haven't seen it, though, unfortunately.
Nope. I mean, even Sony only had the two things.
Yeah.
That we already knew about.
Yep, and this game is scheduled for 2025, coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. So a ways to wait for that one.
A lot of 2025.
There is a lot. This whole show is kind of late 2024 or 2025 or later. Next up, a game called The Casting of Frank Stone. This is a game built in cooperation with Supermassive Games, which makes all the great choose-your-own-adventure horror games that we all love. And we talked about them many times here on GameFace. They're working with the team from Dead by Daylight. And this game is actually set in the Dead by Daylight universe, which I didn't even know was a thing. Like, Dead by Daylight, if you don't remember, is the asymmetrical multiplayer horror game where one person plays.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but apparently Dead by Daylight has extremely deep lore.
I had no clue. But this game is all set in that. And again, Supermassive makes great games, so I'm kind of all over this. The exact verbiage that they've given for the story is that the shadow of Frank Stone looms over Cedar Hills, not Silent Hills, Cedar Hills, a town forever altered by his violent past. Players will step into the shoes of a group of young friends who are about to discover that Stone's blood-soaked legacy cuts deep, leaving scars across families, generations, and the very fabric of reality itself. And the rest is kids get murdered. If you make the wrong decision, your favorite kid gets murdered, and you try to make it to the end of the game without your whole party being killed. That's pretty much how Supermassive Games roll. And again, this will be choose your own adventure. There's not a lot of gameplay in these. There's not much action in it. You're making decisions. You're guiding discussions. It's all that kind of stuff that we've been seeing since The Walking Dead, in all honesty, from a long time ago. But Supermassive, I would argue, may be the best at it at this point. Because Telltale's kind of fallen off.
Yeah, well, Telltale's a non-entity.
Well, it disappeared. Now it's back. He just put out his first game, The Expanse, which was okay. Not amazing. But this one looks like it could be. And it is coming next year, and it is also PC, PS5, Xbox Series. There aren't many games that aren't that at this show.
I mean, if that wasn't Supermassive, I would not pay attention to it at all.
Because I don't care about Dead by Daylight.
No.
I definitely don't care about the lore.
I mean, I don't care about anything I really saw in that trailer. It all looks kind of meh.
I mean, it looks like all Supermassive's other games.
Right, but I mean, like the design and who this Frank Stone guy,
like that dude. Like, I don't care. He doesn't look interesting.
It's an uninteresting premise to me, but I'll play it. I'll try it because it's Supermassive, and they've never let me down, really.
It's the crossover no one asked for.
Pretty much.
Next up, this begins a series of games that are either the first or the last. And the first is the first Berserker, which is also coming. This actually is coming to other platforms. This is coming to PC, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series in 2024. This is a Souls-like hardcore action RPG based on the Dungeon and Fighter franchise. Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
It's a mobile franchise that is like, it's been going for 18 years, and it has more than 850 million users worldwide. I've never heard of it.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Why not?
What you really need to know is it's a pretty slick-looking Souls-like, basically. I don't even know what kind of setting you would even say this is.
It's just dark fantasy.
Yeah, I guess. But it looks like it's from Japan. This game is published by Nexon. Mm-hmm. And it does have
famous indie developer Nexon.
It does seem to have very subtle cell shading almost. Like,
it is a cell shading.
I kind of like the art style of this game.
Yeah, it reminds me of Berserk.
That makes sense. Because it's called the first Berserker. Mm-hmm. So anyway, again, that's coming in 2024 to pretty much all platforms but Switch. So that's the first Berserker. And now the next game we're talking about is the first Descendant. And this one we actually knew about before the Game Awards. This is just like kind of its first like really polished, cool trailer. But we have a bunch of content on this on Sifted already. This is coming summer of 2024, also a Nexon game. This is like a semi-open world game, kind of like Borderlands. It's a loot shooter, basically. All the stuff that comes along with that, grinding for materials that you can use to craft, looting dead corpses to get stuff from them that you can use to craft. One of the things that the studio has said is that players must either repeatedly complete the same objectives or partake in a horde mode with others in the squad. Like, it's almost like this self-contained, almost like modules of content that you jump from one to the next. That's kind of how the way the game is designed. It's almost designed like modularly in some ways. But this is like about as close as you're going to get to Kojima without Kojima. I guess it's the best way I could describe it.
It has a quality that also kind of feels like a companion piece of the Talos principle.
Maybe, yeah, you're right. Like the action set in the universe.
Somebody put a lot of work into the ass deformation in this game. Like that was somebody's like, there's one person on the team that's all they do.
Yeah. This was one of those games that visually like stood out for me, though. This trailer, I was like, "Oh, this stands out from the other stuff that I'm seeing."
When I found out what it is, I was like, "Oh, well, that's too bad."
Yep, it's a loot shooter. Yeah. Although I will say there weren't that many of those in this show.
No, they're the huge international nightmare is slowly ending.
Yeah, it is.
There's still some stragglers.
Well, people are figuring out that they can't make money on it at this point, and so there aren't as many as there used to be. Luckily,
sometimes it's just like stuff like this is like. It's a shame you're wasting that premise on that.
On this, yeah.
On that gameplay. It's like,
but you got to figure people who would be into this aesthetic probably haven't played a lot of loot shooters. So you are kind of trying to maybe tap into a new audience, maybe.
But also maybe they don't play those loot shooters because they don't want to play loot shooters.
Because they just don't like the genre. Yeah.
Like it's weird to me to assume that people don't play loot shooters because they just haven't found the right hook, as opposed to like they don't like that kind of game.
Yeah. But I do think people who are into Kojima probably will give this more of a look than people who aren't. So it definitely has that look about it. Next up, a game called Den of Wolves. This is a sci-fi heist game from the studio that actually created Payday. Mm-hmm. Now, they've since gone on to do other things because they're called 10 Chambers. But the guy who created Payday has gone on to start his new studio, 10 Chambers, while Payday has gone on without him. This is his new take on Payday. It's a sci-fi heist shooter instead of set in whatever time period Payday is. I don't even know when the game is set. But this guy should know how to do it. If you're into heist shooters, this is one to keep an eye on. But unfortunately, his trailer doesn't give away much, and he gave away even less. Even though Jeff talked to him for like 5 minutes, it seemed like.
There wasn't really any information in there.
I don't know why he talked to that guy so long.
Keely does it all the time, though. Like, he talks to these people and they have nothing to say other than,
it gets to the point where even they are like, okay, I don't know what to say anymore.
Even the Blade interview, there's nothing said until finally they talked to the head of Arcane Leon, and he talked about how as a mixed race person, he always identified with Blade, and he's very excited to make the game and set it in his hometown. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Like that's actually telling me about why this game exists beyond like it's like we licensed a Marvel property and we were going to make money.
Make a bunch of money, yeah.
Like that felt like a personal story. It was interesting.
Yep.
And a cool take on Blade. So now I'm more optimistic about Blade because that guy's in charge of making it.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of interview that should be done as opposed to this thing where it's just like you rattle off a bunch of bullet points and I don't really understand what the game is any further than beyond like the template of what you're using.
Yeah. Well, he didn't give up much information. So that's all we know. Sci-fi heist game. He says like 2024, late 20. I don't believe that at all. But it's also PC.
You might get a beta by then.
Yeah. It's also PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. Next up, another game that really caught my eye that I thought looked pretty good, a game called Exoborn. This one is coming to PS4 and Xbox One in addition to the newest consoles and PC. This is an open-world extraction shooter from former Division developers, which Division is probably my favorite game as a service franchise, so this obviously piqued my interest a little bit. It's basically the world is beset by apocalyptic forces of nature after humanity's last hope to restore the ecosystem fails. This is one of those eco games. We're going to talk about another eco game here in a little bit. Players will get to explore the southeastern United States. So it's like...
Finally.
Yeah, just what everybody wanted. Go to Alabama.
Finally, Georgia.
Exactly. This is a weird place to set it. Because all their other games were set in major cities like D.C. or New York. It's weird that this is set in such a rural area. But maybe it'll give it a unique angle. We'll see. But it's in the southeast United States. It's got a big crafting system. You play the role of the reborn. They're human survivors who survived the apocalypse. But now they have special implants that allow them to steer mighty exo rigs, basically like these robot suits. You can see in the trailer these robot suits that they have around them.
Here's a tip, game designers. No more exosuits.
Yeah, I don't care.
Everything just looks the same now. Like I couldn't tell you which game this was if you paid me.
Oddly enough, we're also going to talk about another game with exosuits here in a couple minutes.
Because they're everywhere.
It's the same game I just mentioned a minute ago. It has the same elements as that game. But anyway, it's Exoborn. It's coming to everything but Switch. It's also supposed to come out in 2024. I would be surprised if that's the case. Also, I guess a big part of the gameplay is dealing with the weather itself. So the weather hasn't actually cleared up. It's still horrible, but that's part of the gameplay is living through the weather. So I want to keep an eye on. Next up, if you're into Japanese RPGs, Visions of Mana. The first new Mana RPG in 15 years. I hadn't even realized that it had been that long.
Yeah, 15 years isn't as long ago as you think it is.
I guess really, you're right.
That's 2008.
That's right. Obviously, it's being developed by Square Enix. It's supposed to come out next year in 2024. And the boilerplate that they gave us for this says, embark on a new adventure with Val, the newly appointed Soul Guard, as he sets off on a journey across the world to accompany his friend on her pilgrimage to the Tree of Mana. In other words, it feels like every other Mana game.
Mana game. And enjoy buying 4,000 costumes for people.
Yeah, and this is an action RPG. It has real-time combat. You can see here they show a little bit of actual gameplay in this. Were you a big fan of Mana? Are you still a fan of Mana games?
I like them. I mean, I don't remember the last one I played.
Because it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that was still the Xbox 360.
That's true.
Not...
But Matt, when you've played as many games as we have played, I really wonder, like, if you went around the world and you said, how many video games have you played? I do wonder where I would stack up there. I might be in the top, 3 percentile.
They're probably top 10 at least. Top 10% for sure. There's people that do nothing but
I've been playing games my whole life. And then I've been doing it for a vocation for the last 25 years. And since then, I have been in, the top 1 percentile of playing games.
And, I don't know.
A lot.
I don't know if there's a way to track
we play
that.
a lot of games, man. Way more than the average person.
I own 4,000.
Yeah.
And I played a lot more than that because I played a bunch of stuff that I never want to touch again that I didn't own, obviously. Yeah. Plus all the stuff I don't own anymore because it's on old systems or old things I've lost or 8 computers that don't work anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I probably play 4,000 games in my life.
Yeah. It's a big number.
It's a lot.
Yep.
And I just don't remember. I mean, I like Secret of Mana 1 and Secret of Evermore, and I don't really remember the other ones after that.
Yeah.
They all kind of blend together.
Well, again, that's coming to all platforms in 2024 except for Switch. Next up, a game called Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Horrible, makes me the worst name for a game ever, but it's not going to be the worst game ever because it is a brand new choose your own adventure from Don't Nod. This one is a 90s teen drama where teens find something in the woods when they're younger, and then the game jumps forward 27 years to where they're adults, and they had agreed to never discuss what they saw in the woods.
It's it, basically.
Or whatever, yeah, basically. And that's the plot of the game. Don't Nod's adventure games are amazing. Matt and I are both big friends of Don't Nod in general. As you saw in the trailer, they've created maybe the biggest adventure franchise of all time. I'm pretty excited for this. It's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series in late 2024. And it is a split setting. So you play part of the time as the teenagers, and then you play part of the time in the present day 27 years later. So it's one of those games that jumps back and forth on the timeline. Generally, I enjoy those.
Part of the problem is even as adults, they look kind of young to me.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they're 30.
Exactly. Yep. That's the way it is, Matt Kyle. And then... finally, the last game I want to discuss from the Game Awards, we kind of talked about it already, is Tales of Kanzera Zao. It is coming to all platforms. It launches on April 23rd. This is on EA's indie imprint, EA Originals, where it releases some of the smaller games on its label. In this game, you play as a shaman. And as we saw earlier, it's developed by the fellow who went on stage and was talking about the death of his father and how his father knew he was making this game and his father passed away. And he's like, make sure you finish that damn game. And he has. So there's obviously some emotional heft in this game for that guy. And usually stuff like that makes the best art. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty excited for this. It does look a little bit like the upcoming Prince of Persia game, which is also releasing in the first couple months of next year. So it'll be interesting to kind of compare and contrast these two games with each other.
Yeah, this one has the advantage of using mythology that you don't see much.
True. Yeah. Yep. I think both games will probably end up being good. Yeah. But this was kind of the one indie game that really caught my eye for the Game Awards. And I do realize that we did not cover a lot of the indie stuff that was there, but we just covered like 20 games, and that's about the best we can do on a show like this. Go to some other podcasts and see how many of those games they show you. Good luck if you see 3. So anyway, that's the Game Awards 2023. A couple other things before we move on. They also announced Final Fantasy 16 DLC. Which there was one that like shadow dropped like the next day, and then there's another one coming early next year. And then they also showed a new trailer for Metaphor, which is the new game from the team behind Persona.
Oh, yeah.
And this game's looking amazing.
Looks exactly like Persona.
It does, but I mean, it's their style.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their house style.
They're not in that house anymore, though, really. But
yeah.
I don't know. I guess they're good. They're working on something else other than Persona 6, I suppose.
This looks more interesting to me than another Persona.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather play this than another Persona right now.
I just don't know. I don't know if I'd rather play either at this point.
It's still too soon, even though Persona 5 was that long ago?
This just doesn't look that interesting to me.
Huh. I'm surprised to hear that.
It looks like another open hack and slash. I mean, I've just done this.
Yeah.
And I know it's anime shit, so it's going to have a bunch of useless combo nonsense I got to learn in order to be competitive.
A lot of yelling and screaming.
I'm like, how much of it? Like, are they going to have endurance bars I got to break down before I can even hurt them?
Right.
It's like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, it looks to be an action RPG. It's not a turn-based RPG.
Yeah, I know.
Which is a huge departure for them.
I just don't particularly trust it.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Well, I mean, a good point is that they've never really made a game like this, so maybe you should be a little nervous. But I don't know. I thought this trailer was pretty awesome. It was
I like the art. I mean, obviously, I like the look of Persona stuff. I like the art style and kind of the aesthetic here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Doesn't
mean I have to play it.
It does look like a hack and slash, for sure. But hopefully there's something unique in there, something a little different. I'm sure the storytelling will be at least a little better than the average hack and slash. At least I hope so. But we'll see. Anything that we missed, Matt, that you'd like to bring up about the Game Awards before we move on?
Not that I can think of.
We were pretty thorough.
No.
Like I said, I went through the show and did a rundown and had it all listed out. Again, I forgot it like an idiot. I worked on that thing so hard and totally walked out without
I think
it.
it's pretty funny that the Call of Duty devs are mad that Christopher Judge made fun of them, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It was a pretty innocuous joke.
Yeah,
in the
it
end.
was innocent. I didn't think it was mean or mean-spirited. So there you go. That's the Game Awards. What would you give the Game Awards? I think we know.
We didn't talk about Rise of the Ronin.
I mean, it's already known. It wasn't announced there.
Yeah.
It was just another trailer.
Got a release date.
But it's a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
And it's from Team Ninja. Mm-hmm. And it's another Souls-like, basically.
It didn't look like Souls to me.
Really?
Looked like an action game.
Really?
Yeah.
They made a non-Souls-like Team Ninja?
Looks like it.
Then I will check it out, because they've really fallen in stature for me, because I don't care about Souls-likes.
And Vincent mentions Harmonium, which I actually don't remember.
I don't either. Yeah. I did the best I could. We just talked about a shit ton of games from the Game Awards, so I don't know what to tell you.
It's an isekai about a deaf girl in a world of music. All right.
Yep, you can see why I didn't put it in.
I don't remember that.
What's your letter grade for the Game Awards, Matt?
C-.
I will give them a B. I do forget what I gave them last year. So if I gave them a B last year, I'll give them a B plus this year. It's just 1 plus or minus higher than it was last year. It just keeps inching, at least my opinion, in the right direction. I wish it would go a little faster. But overall, I actually thought the show went by quickly. I did not find myself like at 90 minutes of the show. Like last year, the show hit the 90-minute mark, and I was like, this show needs to end right now. Yeah. And this time, I didn't really feel that way. Like, it cruised on the last hour, and I was okay with it. It ended. I was like, okay, that seems like when it should end.
I was too busy being irritated by the cut down on all the speeches, because like I am interested in what some of these people have to say about winning.
I hear you.
And talking about their dead coworker, and it's just nonsense.
Come on, guys. You guys didn't put your letter grades in? You guys should know by now I was going to ask you right afterwards for your letter grades. Let's see. There's a B-. JM Rain gives it a B-. AJ the Legend, solid B for me. Anybody else? You want to get your letter grades in here before we move on? Solid B for AJ. B+ for Dark Force 256. Nightwing 3060 a B. It appears B, B+, or a B. Yeah. C+ to B-. A. Emperor Dread gives it an A. C+, C, C, C+. Okay. That's not bad. I think Jeff would take those grades. I mean, our crew, we're a hard crew to please, man. We are. Like, if he feels like he can get a B or a C out of us, he's probably pretty happy with that. That'd be my guess. Because he knows better than anyone that we're hard to please. Okay. Let's move on. We're going to talk about...
I end up again in the camp. If you're going to use this Game Award bullshit as your excuse for this show to exist, act like the awards matter.
Yeah.
That's the lesson that they refuse to learn.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the last big game of 2023. And that game is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. I really hope we could have slid it into last week's episode, but the embargo for it was literally the next day. And I've already been playing it now for a week and a half, I guess, at this point. I still haven't finished it, though.
Yeah, it's everything I saw said it was like 15 to 20 hours. And when I loaded up my save the other day, it said I was 38% done with the story.
I don't know what they're talking about.
It seems odd to me.
I mean,
I feel like I'm not even out of like the first main area biome place.
It took me 10 hours to get to the second biome. It took me almost 10 hours just to get my mount, the first mount. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know where that figure comes from. I think this game is big, like every other open world Ubisoft game. It seems that way to me.
Seems like it to me.
I haven't finished it, and I played a shit ton of it. So it's not like I'll say this, you're going to get your money's worth out of it. No one will play this and be like, I didn't get enough playtime.
Unless you're looking for a good story.
Right. Because this is the last place you want to look for that.
Yeah.
That to me is, well, I don't know if it's the biggest. The game has issues, for sure. Like, it has weaknesses. Mm-hmm. But it also has some strengths. And I guess maybe we should just say it right at the beginning, because they're going to see the B-roll eventually. This might be the best-looking video game that has ever been released, graphically.
It is stunning.
It is in that class.
Yeah, I have it running at unobtainium settings with the extra code put in on my PC, and it is the best looking thing I've seen all year, maybe.
It's can't even imagine how good this game looks on Matt's rig. Literally, my eyeballs almost popped out. And look, I've been playing it on PS5, and it blows my mind like every 5 minutes.
There's moments where you look and like the sunlight's filtering through the leaves and the trees and stuff, and you're like, is this real? And
then you can whip around, and the frame rate's like rock solid.
If you love Pandora, like if you're a big fan of the world in Avatar, just go get this right now. Yeah. Like it's amazing. It's and Silk Snake says, Shane says this a lot, best looking ever, because there've been 3 best looking games of all time this year.
Yeah, I also don't say that a lot.
You've said it a lot this year.
Yeah,
because there's the benchmark keeps moving.
Well, because now they're finally starting to get the juice out of these consoles. Like the first couple years,
Cyberpunk
they weren't.
With the current updates is the direct competitor to this. I would say, and honestly, I think it comes down to which environment you think is more interesting. Yeah. If you like cities and cyberpunk and neon and all that kind of stuff, Cyberpunk's going to be your top pick. If you like nature and trees and environmental stuff, it's this.
You doubt me, and wait till you watch this B-roll, and you'll apologize. That's all I gotta say, man. This game is a stunner, and that is the best thing I can say about this game. Mm-hmm. From there, things are average to middling to disappointing, I would say.
Yeah, it's other than the visuals, it is a kind of middle of the road Far Cry game.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, this is Massive Entertainment doing this, and this is their apparently modifications and additions and take on the Snowdrop engine, and they're the ones making Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, man.
And if Star Wars Outlaws looks like this,
I can't wait.
Shit.
I can't wait. So the plot we already said is bad. You basically you're a part of a special ambassador program where humans are raising Na'vi to try to.
You're part of like it's presented as and even named exactly the same as those Canadian schools where they educated the Indian out of the Native American children.
Yep, that's exactly what's happening.
Literally what's happening here.
Yep. They're trying to make them assimilate in with the RDA, the humans,
and
who
use them
are
as
Pandora.
soldiers against their own people.
Against their own people. Yep, absolutely. But all the shit hits the fan, you escape, and you go out into Pandora, and you rejoin with your clan, and you try to become a part of the clan again, and assimilate yourself back into your culture, learn their ways, learn how they fight, learn how they make things, learn how they communicate, all that stuff. It sounds way more interesting than it really is.
Yeah, because the problem, this actually really kind of turned the dial and really allowed me to figure out like something about Avatar why it doesn't work for me story-wise, because I don't dislike the movies, but I also don't think their stories are any better than your average Captain Planet episode. And this also, I was like, oh, maybe they can tell an interesting, like, different story with this, or like branch out and show a different part of the world. And they do show a different part of the world and some different tribes and stuff. But the problem is, there's no pockets where you can tell other stories in this world, because like it's not like Star Wars or Marvel where the universe is big enough that there's different areas where things aren't involved in the Galactic Civil War, or like there's things like they're not involved with fighting Thanos or whatever, things like that. The premise of Avatar is this world is being invaded by a colonial imperialist power, a commercialist power that is exterminating a civilization.
Yeah.
And you can't not deal with that situation if you're these people.
Yeah.
And there's no other story to tell. Like anything that is deviates from that feels like a distraction, or in this case, a side quest.
Well, the problem though, Matt, is that you can't tell them apart. They all look the same, so it's hard to even.
They aren't very differentiated.
Like you run into people and you're like, "Wait a minute, have I met you before?" And you're telling me, "Okay, we did," because you're talking to me like we did.
You gotta keep track of everybody's clothing.
Yeah, that's the only way you can tell who people are.
Which is doubly weird because in the movies, their faces are very distinct.
They are. Yeah.
Even the faces you get to choose from as your character in this are sort of like, is those two different?
Yeah, I can't tell the difference between them. Yeah,
it's just a bunch of cats.
Yeah.
You know? Except for one, there's one like really weird round face. I'm like, that's just funny. Like,
and one missing an eye.
Yeah, the missing an eye one's pretty good.
Those ones are easy to tell, but the rest of them are not, and it makes it hard to tell other stories because
everybody's got weird names.
Yeah, it's like you can't remember who anybody is or what they told you to do or asked you to do beforehand. Like I just follow the waypoints.
The big warrior guy who helps you early on has a name that sounds a lot like Salt Lick. Yeah. So that's how I remembered what his name was. But
But that's,
I mean, I can't remember the humans' names either. It's nobody stands out as a character in this game at all.
Well, eventually what happens is it's your job to go around and meet all the other clans and get them on your side. And so you want all three of the primary clans to join together as one clan to fight the RDA to get the RDA out of Pandora. It's the same story as every freaking Avatar film. And that's exactly what you get in this game. And to Matt's point, like, the characters all look the same. Like, you can't do side stories because I don't remember who the people are. I'm like, I don't remember talking to you before. Really? We met? When was that? Like,
there was one point where I was like, there's this like one girl on an Ikron who like saves you and helps you at one point. And you're supposed to go meet her later. And I went to go do the quest where I met up with her, and it turned out that I went to find someone else. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't her name? It was just someone else whose name began with E?
Yeah.
And like...
Yeah. So the story in this isn't great. And again, because the characters are unmemorable, you can't really remember them. Like, the side stories don't matter that much. They're just, I just kept following the checkpoints from one waypoint to the next. But there are some cool touches to it. Like after you've like united clans and if you go back to your headquarters, you get the whole everybody there knows what you've done and they're congratulating you and saying, wow, that was really great that you went and did that and you're uniting our clans against the RDA. Like it has that kind of stuff in it, but otherwise the story just isn't that good. And the other thing too, Matt, is that the antagonists, they just disappear. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning...
Now, to be fair, that's a Far Cry trademark.
It is kind of.
They're in the beginning, and you learn to hate them, and then they don't show up again until the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's the way it is in here, too. Like, you meet the evil humans who are, like, using you to, like, fight your own people or whatever. You escape, and then, like, you don't see them again. They show up on, like, laptops. Like, you'll be in, like, an office, and their face will pop up on, like, Zoom. But you don't actually like run into them.
Where all villains really do appear.
Yeah. Let's seriously. So the plot isn't great. Let's talk about the design, though. You already saw kind of some of the stuff, like showing off the gear. You have 5 pieces of gear total that you can attain and upgrade, and there's tons of crafting in the game, and that's a big... Later on in the game, the crafting and gathering the materials becomes a much bigger deal. As you start...
Early on, it's very hard to understand what they want you to do with some of that.
As later on, you start getting stuff that makes a huge difference. Like certain materials, the way they're rated, it becomes a big
But
deal.
early on, there's no variation. Or like getting something pristine and not doesn't really make much of a difference. And so like it's very. I feel it's pretty poorly explained.
It is. They try to tease you into it because there's like one of the early missions is a mission where you have to cook a meal.
Yeah.
And you have to get very specific, like high quality ingredients. And that kind of teaches you stuff that you'll have to use later on. You have to like cross reference the map with like the log,
With the hunter's guide, and all that.
Like, it's kind of annoying.
It's annoying, but also if you're looking for something that's more exploration based, like it's that's cool. But the problem is like there is an actual mode where you can pick between like guided and exploration mode on this, or like the old Assassin's Creeds did, and in exploration mode, they basically remove all the guidance stuff, and you have to basically read the map and use your own waypoints and
screw that.
And like I tried it because I did like that in the Assassin's Creed games, but the environment in this game is so dense that I couldn't tell what I was where I was looking or what I was after. Like
I thought the map screen,
confusing.
the waypoint system, all of it was not great. The map doesn't zoom in enough.
That was what I was going to say. Is the map zoomed in about 20% more, it would be fine.
Yeah,
but I
it doesn't.
constantly want to see a little bit closer.
It's infuriating. It drives me bonkers. And the worlds are very samey. So there's basically 3 biomes in the game, and each of the 3 clans lives in that particular biome. Each biome you stay in for around 8 to 10 hours before you move on to the next one, and that is way too long. Like this first biome is like all jungle and like day glow colored flowers, and for the first like 5 hours it's like mind-blowing how gorgeous it is, but then after a while you're like, dude, this whole area just looks like a unicorn just barfed all over itself. Like it never changes. It's just the same thing. And then you go to the new biome, which is like the second one is the plains, and it is starkly different from the first area. It's just this wide open, there are plains with the wind whipping and there's a bunch of kites and stuff. Like it's completely different, but then you spend the next 8 hours in that area before you move on to the third one. Like it gets monotonous. The whole game I felt like got monotonous.
Never used a Navi in t-shirts.
Yeah, it's so a little weird. Especially when they're tucked into their pants.
Yeah, don't do that, dude. Let it hang.
Yeah.
Let it hang.
And then you're also, as you play through the game, you earn like skill points that you use in 5 different skill trees. There's a health tree, there's a combat tree, there's an ammo tree, there's a crafting tree, and there's an Ecron tree. And there's also like a general ancestor skills tree. Well, not actually a tree, it's like this flower that has petals.
Yeah, flower that opens up.
And pro tip, if you play this, as soon as you start playing, focus on that, because you can tap triangle. It'll show you on the map where you can go and get those. And once you get them, you get 2 skill points just for getting those.
And all the skills they teach you are very important traversal things.
Yep. And the skill points are ultimately what levels you up. The leveling in this game is so slow.
Yeah, because it's a mix of the skills you have and the gear quality.
I played like 8 or 10 hours.
Crawls.
Yeah, I played 8 or 10 hours. I was level 7.
Yeah, I'm still level 6 about that same amount of time.
I mean, now I'm like way past that.
And the leveling doesn't actually matter that much.
It doesn't.
It does. Like there are no hard like you can't handle this enemy because you're not this level. I haven't run into any of that really.
I mean, there's some.
You don't want to attack 4 APUs at once, right. Really. But
well, you can eventually.
Yeah, but early on, you're gonna want to take a couple out.
Here's
first.
Pro tip number 2. Don't go in. So a big part of this game is, as I said earlier, there's an ecological angle to this. You're trying to restore the healthy environment back to Pandora. And so you come across these smog-producing factories that the RDA has, and your job is to go in, infiltrate them, shut a bunch of stuff down, and then that's basically you're synchronizing that area. All the plants grow back and everything after you've completed it. Well, when I first started playing, I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot my way through these. And to your point earlier about like, you don't get caught like out of your level. I did. Like I could not. There's an encampment that was level 7. I was level 6. I was level 4. I couldn't beat it. Mm-hmm. I tried it 8 or 9 times. I couldn't beat it. So I went and I did a bunch of side missions, got up to like I was a level below, beat it that time barely, and I was like, there's something going on here, man. It shouldn't be this hard. This game should not be that difficult. And it's not. You also get this little gadget called a SID, and it's this little like scanning gun that you use, and it's got this little like you'll see it eventually in the B-roll.
You were just doing it.
Oh, it was on there already.
Yeah.
What you do when you go to these encampments, you sneak around and you stealth, and then you use the SID to just go up and hack the stuff. You don't have to kill like anybody.
No.
Like, I didn't realize that for the first literally like 8 hours playing this game.
They do tell you that when they give you the thing.
I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, that's the thing. They give you the SID and they basically send you out to do that at that first drilling spot or whatever it is. And I didn't really get it either. I didn't get it till I did it was like I don't know what it was. It was a big area with a bunch of things that just went thunk, thunk, thunk over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I went over and there were way too many enemies to kill. And if I killed any, like they just like sent more in from helicopters. And I'm like, okay, so I just went in and you can hack them and you can store the hack. Like up to 5 hacks, and then like you sneak in as best you can. I feel like the stealth is kind of half baked in this. I don't. There's no real way to like effectively stealth kill anybody.
Yeah.
Like Far Cry has.
Isn't. Yeah.
And you just sneak out. You hack the thing, get out of the way. A couple times, you can store the hack and then blow the thing up, and then send them to run over to. That'll make them run over and see what was blowing up, so you can go get to the next thing you have to hack. That kind of thing. Yeah. It's real rudimentary, but it's a lot easier than fighting off 40 guys.
Yeah. Eventually, so here's the other thing too. Eventually, the combat gets broken in this because if you use the right skill points, you eventually get this ability where you can just reach into the mechs and snatch the dudes out of the mechs. Oh, yeah, and it basically turns into the counter kills from Assassin's Creed.
They do have to be stunned first, but there's a lot of ways to do
You shoot them with one arrow.
Yeah.
And they're stunned, you run up, snatch them out, kill them. You just do it over and over again. And it just kind of took all the tension in the combat out of the game. Although the SID kind of does that as well. Like, you can literally just sneak in and, like, finish off these bases and, like, hardly even fire an arrow. That's the other thing I would say is, like, I hardly ever use the guns in this. I use the bows. I use the heavy bow because it literally, one shot, one kill on almost everything.
I mean, that's Far Cry as well.
Yeah.
I almost never use anything but the bows in Far Cry.
Yeah. And I kind of like it. It's different from shooting. They give you guns, but I just don't like using them.
The guns are fine, but they're not very... I mean, the shotgun's useful for some close-up stuff. A couple times they force you into hallways for something like story-related, but otherwise, bows. They
also give you like a lacrosse stick that has that you use to throw mines.
I don't use that. I use that when they made me use it, and that's about it.
Those mines are handy, though.
I'm sure they can be.
Yeah, if you get good with it.
You don't find them often enough for me to really...
Once I got the snatch ability, I didn't really have to worry about anything else. Mm-hmm. It was just like, I don't have to worry about setting the mines anymore.
I also enjoy that you have kind of the fast travel exists, but like the faster way to travel like on foot is like to run over those giant vines, which are conveniently laden with performance enhancing drugs.
Right.
These little like
they give you little speed bursts.
Little flowers that like set off like this pollen that's supposed to like enhance your speed, so you're just constantly running through them and it gives you a little burst.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you're basically just constantly high. Is what you're telling me. Like, Na'vi are just always on speed.
You need it, though, because it takes a long time till they give you your Ekron, your mount. And you have to run a lot in the early hours of this game. And so if you run along...
fast travel costs energy.
Yeah.
So.
If you run along those root systems, they have those little white plants on them that Matt was talking about. And they give you little speed bursts to run. And in this game, everywhere has, as you've seen in the B-roll, these little pods that have cords that come down that you grab onto them, and they just zip you up to the top of them or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't realize Pandora had so many natural plants that replicate Far Cry gameplay moments.
Also, the other thing I would say too is all these bases are like copy and paste. They have the same buildings; they're just rearranged in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they at least they have the excuse of having prefab structures that have been brought across.
Because the RDA is bringing the stuff to the moon or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of make sense. Jumping and climbing and running controls, I never thought they were great. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit out of control all the time. Like, it's hard to tell if you can jump up to stuff. Like, there's a double jump, but it's not like most double jumps. It's like a jump and then a quarter of another jump. I don't know. I just never felt like the controls in this felt all that good. The gunplay is fine. The bow play is fine. But the traversal, I just didn't feel like it felt very good. I was very happy when I got my Ekron finally. And so you get the Ekron, which lets you fly. And then the messed up part, Matt, is they give you the Ekron first. You can fly anywhere. And then they give you the Dire Horse second, which you have to keep reestablishing the link with. So for the Ekron, you establish a link once, that's your Ekron. The Dire Horses, that's not how it works. You have to like creep up to them and tame them over and over and over again. Also, they can only run. Like, they're by far the inferior of the mounts, and they take the Ekron away from you when you go to these new biomes and make you use the Dire Horse.
Yeah, you have to earn the flight in each new area.
It's weird. What else? Again, I hardly use the guns. I use the bows almost 100%. Harvesting and crafting, at first it seems like it's not important. As the game goes on, it becomes more important. I do like the mechanic of how you can jump off a cliff and call your Ekron as you're falling, and he'll swoop down and pick you up. I wish it was a little quicker, because if I just jump off a cliff, a lot of times I'll hit the ground before the Ekron gets there to like scoop me up. But once you're on the Ekron, like there's aerial combat, like those like floating platforms, you can land on them and you can use your SID to like hack them and blow them up because they're actually operated by the RDA. Like 2 arrows will take down a helicopter in this game, which is kind of crazy, but...
And they're big arrows.
Yeah, they are.
But in the movie, too, it's like, you'd think in 15 years one of your priorities would have been to develop arrow-proof windshields, but they didn't do that.
You'd think. What else?
Do you need windshields on those things? Like, can't you just like have it be like a AR thing inside? Like, no, it's all armor.
You'd think.
We could do that now.
Yeah. The health system in this is actually different than a lot of games. You have to eat, but the eating, if your stomach is full, you could regenerate your health. If your stomach is empty, you can't.
Something else worked. Is that how Far Cry 5 worked?
I don't think
Something else worked where it's like the energy you had was sort of what allowed you to regen health. And you had to keep the energy up to keep, and then this thing bugs you about eating constantly. Because it's like
if you don't regenerate health. You have to feed your Ekron as well.
But I don't need to eat because I'm full health.
Right? Because I never die. No, you're right. It bugs you about it all the time. So you have to feed yourself and you have to feed your Ekron, and both of those, once you're full, you will regenerate your health all on your own.
And you do have instant healing items if you need them.
Yeah, you can see those dots, those little green dots. It says heal down there at the bottom. You tap left on the D-pad. And as you go throughout the game, you earn extra dots, which means extra full healings or whatever. And you can increase your max health, or you can increase the amount of healings that you have. As we said, leveling is really, really slow. 8-10 hours in, I was like level 6 or 7, which just seems insane. The leveling really matters with the quests. Because as I said earlier, like some of the quests, it's like, okay, you need level 70. For level 6, you're probably not going to complete it unless you, later on, once you get that snatching ability and all the combat is just kind of made moot. And I'll say this, like they didn't really beat you over the head with the ecology stuff. Like you do it, and once you clear out one of these plants, all the plants come back and they grow back, and the Na'vi are happy that you did it or whatever, but it's not like they beat you over the head with like the ecological message. Like that happens sometimes in games like this. Where it's just almost like, what was that VR game that our friends made? It's Jupiter and something.
Oh, the dolphin thing?
Yeah. That game beat you over the head with the ecological message, which I get it. Like, that's what they were going for. This game does not do that. It's very subtle, but it's still in there.
Well, it also kind of takes for granted the idea that if you're playing this game, you probably already agree with it.
Yeah.
So
probably right. Yep. And that's pretty much it. Like, the one thing I would say is that just everything in this is very repetitive. The enemies are repetitive. The missions are repetitive. The characters that you're interacting with all look the same. Like, the game just in general, I guess that's the way I would describe it if I had to say it in a word, is samey.
I mean, it's Far Cry.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an Ubisoft open world game, so.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have had fun. Like, I'm like 20-some hours into it. I'm fading a little bit. Like, I'm starting to lose motivation a little bit to keep playing. I probably won't stop quite yet, but I am like already in the 3rd biome. I think I'm starting to kind of wind down the game a little bit, but I could be wrong. But I guess I've enjoyed it, but I wouldn't pay $70 for this game. Would you?
I mean, I did.
Well, it's for your job or whatever. Like, it's different. As a consumer, would you?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Far Cry, and this is at least engaging enough to keep me going, if I don't have anything else to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's more engaging than Far Cry 5.
Oh, this is way better than the last Far Cry, by the way. That's probably the one thing we should say.
Far Cry 6, rather.
Yeah, this is way better than the last Far Cry. At least I have enjoyed it a lot more than the last Far Cry. Mm-hmm. I've already played it way longer than I did the last Far Cry, so that says something. And look, I wouldn't call myself a fan of Avatar, but I like the movies. But I don't feel like my like or dislike of the IP really affected how much I liked this game.
No,
honestly.
it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Again, if you do really like the world of Pandora, and think that's you can scan all the animals and all the plants, and there's little stories about them and data about them in the journal thing. I mean, if you like the world, go get it right now. Like it's
oh yeah, you'll love this. If you're a fan of Avatar, you will love this. This is your game of the year. I mean, who could have thought that you would get a game that looks this freaking good? Like, licensed games just don't look and play this well normally. I mean, gladly that is starting to change a little bit here over the last 10 years, but we still get really crappy licensed games, and this is not one of them. So it is a very competent game, and honestly, I don't think the things I have a problem with are really the fault of Ubisoft. It's really just the IP. It's set in this world that's very samey. It's centered around these people that all look very similar to each other, and with the technology in real time not being, what is it, CG, it's harder to see the nuances and pick the people apart. But I mean, otherwise, Ubisoft, as far as making an Avatar game, did a damn good job.
Yeah, this is about as good as an Avatar game is going to get.
Yeah, it really is. So again, if you're a big fan of this IP, fan of the movies or whatever, I don't think you'll regret picking up this game.
I wouldn't mind seeing them do a follow-up at some point that takes into account some of the other biomes that are in the sequels, like the water stuff and the fire stuff in the next one. That would be interesting, a way to go, but that's a ways off.
Yeah. So again, if you're a fan of it, I think you should pick it up. It's available for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. It's not available for last gen, and there's a reason, because the game looks damn good. That's the other thing,
if you have the PC to run it, definitely get it on PC.
Yeah.
Because for once, it actually runs real well.
Yeah.
You're always worried about Ubisoft, especially PC releases, but no, it runs pretty well. And on my 4090, I can do the unobtainium settings at max, and it runs at a pretty solid 60. So.
Also, if you're looking for a technical showcase to show off your console, maybe to your wife, your significant other, they're like, why did you buy that thing for $500? Buy this and put it in and be like, this is why I bought it. Because my wife even was like, whoa. It caught her off guard. She was like, you just watched this movie 2 months ago. And I'm like, no, this is a game. And she was like, whoa. It was kind of like that moment when she walked in and saw me playing NFL 2K on my Dreamcast back in the day. She walked into the apartment and just stopped and was like, why is there a game on Wednesday? Yeah. And I was like, it's not. I mean, it's funny to look at those graphics now, and she was fooled by it. But that's how it is.
To be fair, the TVs weren't as good then either.
That's true. Yep. Okay, so there you go. That's Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora. I struggle. I would only recommend it for very specific people. What about you? Yeah,
I mean, if you love Far Cry but want something different out of it, or if you love Avatar, or you want a technical showcase.
Yeah.
It's those things. It doesn't really stand on its own as its own thing.
Yep. Okay. That's it for Avatar. And now we come to our last topic of the show, and it's really not a topic at all. It's just Matt and I wrapping up our Video Game Fantasy League and yours for 2023. We kind of knew what was happening already with our league. We talk about it all the time, but I will bring up the final results because there are some interesting things to look at here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing Rogue Trader, but I should have been playing a different Warhammer game.
Yep, absolutely. So I won. Is that 3 out of 4 years that I've won now? So I won back-to-back, and then you won last year.
Maybe?
I think that's 3 out of 4 for me. I got all 10 of my games for maybe the first time ever. I even had an extra that I didn't need, Dead Island 2. So I was ultra conservative. I still can't believe Hollow Knight Silksong didn't come out. I thought that was the safest pick ever.
Suicide Squad was not a risky pick.
Well, don't forget, I had picked it the year prior, Matt. Yeah. But I also had picked Zelda for the prior 2 years.
We had a release window and everything. It was not an issue.
Yeah.
There we go.
So Matt, obviously, he had a tough year. He only ended up with a total of 9 of his games, which actually that's pretty good considering the rough luck you had with all the delays. But you got no score for Suicide Squad. You got no score for Space Marine 2, which, by the way, was just delayed until the end of the year next year. Yep. Which is crazy.
So they weren't ever, and it was never coming this year. Ever.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's insane.
Don't believe those years on those
trailers. You really
trailers.
can't. It's crazy. And then Stalker 2 didn't make it either, for obvious reasons. They have more important things to worry about developing games in Ukraine.
Octopath Traveler was a good fucking pick.
It really was. You got that 84 down there.
Literally the last pick.
Yeah. Any of the scores stand out for you looking at this?
I mean, Redfall, obviously.
Jedi Survivor at 82. That seems way low to me.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16 at 87 is low to me. Street Fighter 6 is high to me.
I think
Forza's high to me.
Forza's very high.
Yep. Starfield's low to me. Diablo's right. Baldur's Gate's right.
Fire Emblem Engage does not seem to reflect the current opinions about it. People seem to think Engage is a pretty mediocre entry.
I mean, Fire Emblem usually gets a 9 point something. So, that score actually does reflect a bad or not as good Fire Emblem. Assassin's Creed Mirage of 76, that's about right. I can't argue with that too much.
So if Suicide Squad had come out, I would have won. It would have gotten at least an 80.
Our averages, you're 83.5, I'm 83.
But you add an 80 into my score, and it's 832.
Yeah.
They've been real close.
Oh, wow. That would have been so close.
If Suicide Squad at least got an 80, at a 78, we would have tied.
It would. I don't think it would have. If it came out this year, it would have got a 78, though.
No, we got them higher than that.
No, I think it got lower.
No, I think the reviews would have been higher.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't really think reviews reflect reality much anymore.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, actually. I don't know. But I did win.
Redfall's pretty accurate. Actually, Redfall's kind of high still. I think 60 for Redfall at launch is kind of ridiculous, actually.
No, that's now. Like, all these scores are now. Yeah.
Right,
that's why Spider-Man's now a 90 instead of a 92.
Those reviews happen when they came out. Like, those are reviews from the
what I'm saying is that the score has gone up since it came out.
What was it when it was out?
It was like a 56. And it's gone up to a 6. Because now people are playing it. It's actually kind of starting to catch on again.
Still too high.
Maybe. I don't know.
That was the worst thing I played this year. One of them, anyway.
Oh, not
actually,
for me.
I
played way worse than that, sadly. But, however, I did win, and therefore, I get a round of applause.
Assassin's Creed really underperformed for the fourth pick, too.
Yeah, that ended up being a bad... I mean, Starfield, that's a terrible pick for the first pick. I mean, I kind of knew that it was risky that way, but then I make up for it. I get RE4, way down there, a 93, and then look at Armored Core 6, my ace in the hole.
Almost a 90.
It paid off. Yeah, it worked out well. I think Forspoken at a 64 is too low. I think that game's better than a 64, but...
I didn't dislike that much.
Yeah.
Although Forspoken 64 does make it sound like an N64 game, which is pretty funny.
Because there was a Forspoken 64. That's hilarious.
Forsaken,
that's right. Yeah, yep. So anyway, there you go. Those are the results of the Sifted Video Game Fantasy League for 2023. That's 3 out of 4 championships for me. And we'll be back at it next year. We'll do our draft in January, so not long to wait for that. And now it's time to crown our champion of the Sifted Fantasy Challenge for 2023. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know who won, but here it is. Drum roll, please. The winner is... Da, 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 da.
Nope.
I screwed it up. The winner is Surf Spider. Congratulations, Surf Spider. And best of all, Surf Spider is a sifter. He has been a subscriber to Sifted since our beta. He has been a member of Sifted since February of 2016. These are the people that I love to see win the Sifted Fantasy Challenge. He gets, because he is a patron and a member of Sifted, he gets 2 free games. If somebody had won who was not a member of Sifted and not a patron, they would have got 1. But since he is a patron, Surf Spider gets 2 free games. Surf Spider, hit me up however you want. You can DM me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can DM me on Sifted at Shane. You can DM me here on Twitch. Whatever you want to do, man, just get at me and we'll coordinate and I'll get you your 2 free games out to you as your winner. But I do want to point out something before we move on here. Look at how many people got all 10 of their games to count. It's like 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Chevelle Man. He got all of his. 40 people got all 10 games. Last year we had like 3. And I don't know if I've ever done it in the Fantasy Challenge because I aim for the stars anyway because we can't win. I'm just trying to get the highest score ever or whatever. But 40 of you... Look how many people had Zelda as the first one.
Yeah, well, one few years ago, the person who won was the only one who got all 10.
That's right. So you guys are figuring it out. You're starting to play a little more conservative, but now it's like splitting hairs. Like it was 40 of you that got all 10, and it's like, look, it was close.
Look how far down you got to go to find someone who's just in the yellow.
Yeah. I finished 110th this year.
I forgot to enter.
Yeah, you forgot to enter. I had 2 games that didn't even make it this year. But look at how close it is. 1377 to 1373 to 1372 to 1371 to 1369. I mean, it was a close race, guys. Like, you guys were maybe have been watching, like, some of these scores to see if they went up or down. It may have affected who won ultimately. If they go up or down a 10th or something, like that could change by 1 or 2 points your scores. It's all weighted, obviously. Your first game is weighted more highly than your 10th. So anyway, congratulations once again to Surf Spider. Like I said, we'll be doing our draft in early January. We'll also be setting up the Sifted Fantasy Challenge for you guys again in January. If any of you guys have any ideas for ways you may want to tweak it, let us know. We can maybe do that. This is set up by Lashik, and he is awesome. He's a sifter, and he sets this up every year. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's a lot of fun and something you guys check in on and have a good time with throughout most of the year. So congratulations once again to Surf Spider. let's look at the time here. Oh, we just hit the 3-hour mark. So unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to do Name That Game. You know what? Screw it. We're going to do it anyway. Are you guys ready to do Name That Game? We'll just get in here real fast because it's our last show of the year. Screw it. We're not going to do a Q&A today. Come on Friday for our Game of the Year episode. We'll do a long Q&A at the end of that to cap things off for the end of the year. We'll do Name That Game, and then we'll call it for GameFace in 2023. All right. As always, name that game. I show you 5 screenshots. You try to guess the name of the game before Matt. If you've won already this year, do not play, although that's about to change. Everyone's about to roll over. You guys will all be able to play beginning in January. As of right now, if you've won already, do not play. If you won't play PC games, do not play, because the winner of this gets a free PC game. Let's give it to somebody who wants it. What's the third thing?
I don't know.
I always forget one of them.
Make your guesses count because it's slow mode?
Oh, yeah. Slow mode. You got it. Yep. Chat's in slow mode. You can only put in one entry every 60 seconds. Make them count. Don't just spam us with game titles. You're going to lose. That's it. You guys ready? You ready, Matt?
Sure.
All right. Here comes Name That Game. Here is the
Probably
first...
going to want to put the chat up.
Oh, what? Oh, I'll do that. Here's the first image for Name That Game. Go! Metal Gear Solid 1, no. Metal Gear Solid 5, no. Monster Hunter Rise, no. Oh, we have a winner already. Everybody got this. That's insane.
Monster Hunter World.
It's Monster Hunter World. Congratulations. That's incredible. Well, it all worked out in the end. The show didn't even go over all that much because you got it on the first image. That's crazy.
I guess if you've been staring at that game that long.
I guess so. And the game's old, too. Like, you'd think it would, like, fade from memory over time, but no.
People still play it.
Leonosaurus, congratulations. It is indeed Monster Hunter World. A little bit of a play on, the fact that Monster Hunter was the big reveal at the Game Awards. I thought it might be fresh in mind. Vincent says, people who took over Mad Cats are teasing a new guitar coming in January. So it looks like that they may actually make it. Leonosaurus, congratulations on winning the last Name That Game of 2023. As always, to reach out to me for your free game, just like I said for the Fantasy Challenge, you can hit me up on Twitter at Dimfire, on SIFTD at Shane. You can hit us up here, send me a DM right here on Twitch if you want to. Whatever you want, get at me, and we'll get the code out to you before I head home for the holidays, and make sure you get that game. Let's see. Got a couple things. Actually, we got at least one more thing to take care of before we move on here, and that is hearing a word from our sponsor, soundwizardry.com. Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel. That's right, Sifters. Head to soundwizardry.com for any of your sound needs. Any project that you're working on, a video that you're working on, if you need voiceover, if you need audio to be fixed, if you're making a game, you need audio for your game, head to soundwizardry.com. As you see from the video, they have an amazing resume. They have worked on some of the most incredible games. I mean, that's about the best resume you can have for 2023, the stuff that they worked on this year. I mean, it just shows you the good work that they do. If they weren't doing good work, they would not be on those projects. So once again, head to soundwizardry.com for any of your sound needs. You won't regret it, and they're good people to boot. And that's it for GameFace for 2023. I just want to thank all of you guys for supporting the show this entire year. Whether you're a patron, which you guys are just god tier to me, whether you're just someone on YouTube who comments and likes and does all that kind of stuff, whether you're someone who listens to the podcast on a podcast service and you're writing us a review so that we bubble up in the reviews there, we appreciate all of it. The people who are pledging at $30 a month to get their name in GameFace. You guys are awesome. You are a tight crew, man. Like, I wish we got more new people to that group. Like, we don't get new people very often, but the people that are in that group, they are down with the plan, and I appreciate you guys so much. And even more than that, a big difference for us this year was our sponsors. So soundwizardry.com, LS Cream, DeShazer Ryan Realty, those sponsorships have made a big difference for us. And look, I understand that it could be a little annoying to have to watch ads when you're paying for content. I do think about that, but we need it to survive. If I wouldn't do it if we didn't have to do it. So I hope you guys can understand. I do appreciate your understanding in that way. I just appreciate all you guys for everything you've done for us. Thanks also, actually, this show's going to be way over, but I got to do this because it's just too big of a deal to not do it. I want to thank the people who have been sending us money for beer. 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm going to read out the names of the people who have already donated money to us for beer. And some of them donated money that was way over what a beer costs. Glottis, thank you. Andy T. Monahan, thank you. Paid by Death, thank you. Shane A. 28, thank you. Limper, thank you. Biz Foul, thank you. Chris, FF8 Master C, thank you. Snowman 92, thank you. El Timbo, thank you. Ollie John, thank you. Well, is this Toppy, thank you. Scott Seeley, thank you. V Nunez, thank you. Fruit Eater, thank you. Nixopunk, thank you. And I think that's it. Those are all the people who have used that QR code to buy us a beer for the holidays. Thank you, guys. And again, watch my Twitter feed over the holidays. I promise you, I will go out with my boys and I will take a picture of me with my boys in Central PA with one of the beers that you bought me. I appreciate it very much. And Matt, I appreciate you too, opening up your home to us to do the show here all year long. Just amazing. I can't even put into words how much I appreciate that. So much love, everybody. A great 2023. Don't forget, we will be here on Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern for our Game of the Year awards, and that will close out the year for us. So have a great week filled with great games. GameFace is up and out.